New way, both directions. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
It's coming up to 7 minutes after 6. Today is Thursday, the 17th of April, 2025. Good morning and welcome to it. Today's edition of The Morning Brief here on SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide. As dawn breaks and your day begins to take shape, we are here to ensure that you are fully briefed with all the news, information, analysis and perspectives that you need to navigate your world today. I'm Thulasizwe Simelane and I'm here to deliver your morning brief. Here's what's coming up over the next 3 hours. Let's signpost for you where we are going with this journey. Firstly, we'll tell you about President Cyril Ramaphosa concluding his 2-day oversight engagement with the leadership of government in the Eastern Cape. And that included the provincial executive of the Eastern Cape and other elements of government in that province. And during that visit in the Eastern Cape, the president has been confronted by dire service delivery failures. The president expressing particular concern at the end of that visit and that engagement, that oversight visit, expressing particular concern over rising crime levels in the Eastern Cape, calling for additional crime-fighting resources and capacity to be deployed there, but also saying that he's concerned about infrastructure challenges in the Eastern Cape and housing backlogs. You will have seen, if you live in the Eastern Cape, a powerful headline from the Herald newspaper welcoming the president and his delegation and saying, "Welcome to our broken city, Mr. President," with powerful pictures on the front page that really talk to the state of service delivery in the Eastern Cape. So in the second hour, we will lead with full reporting and analysis on the president's engagement in that province of the Eastern Cape. Samgele Masego was tracking that story and will give us a full brief on what transpired during that engagement. But also, do feel free to engage me if you live in the Eastern Cape. Did the president get a full picture? And did you get a sense that there was proper solutions workshopping and implementable solutions that will emerge from this engagement? It's not the first one that the president has had. You'll remember there was one in Gauteng recently. He's done a similar one in KwaZulu-Natal as well as in Mpumalanga. So it seems he's going province by province every other month with these engagements. Then we'll tell you this story. Nearly 6 decades after Inkosi Albert Luthuli, after his controversial death, the government has now reopened the inquest into the circumstances surrounding his passing. He was, of course, a Nobel Peace Prize laureate and also a former ANC President General. As new evidence comes to light, the inquiry, it's believed that it may offer long-awaited closure to his family and also arguably represents a critical moment of reckoning with our history as a country 3 decades after apartheid ended. So Ayanda Mhlongo will report on that. It's been a full week of hearings, almost at the end of the first week of hearings at the High Court in Pietermaritzburg. SABC News' Ayanda Mhlongo will give us the full details and breakdown of what transpired during that, and that's coming up just after 7 a.m. Then in this hour, actually in the next few minutes, on Monday, the American billionaire Jeff Bezos' Blue Origin space exploration company, or call it space tourism company, made history when it sent a star-studded all-female crew to the edge of space. The passengers included Bezos' partner, Lauren Sanchez, journalist Gayle King, and pop star Katy Perry. So it got many people talking. But it has also triggered widespread debate about its true value, with some hailing it as a win for space tourism, science and feminism, while others decry it as a shameless publicity stunt and also a perverse display of privilege that added no value to space exploration. So we'll unpack this in our international feature coming up over the next few minutes. Of course, today being a Thursday, once again, no different from any other day, the full Morning Brief team is primed and ready to be at your service with your updates throughout the morning. We have N. Musa at the news desk, Rob Byrne watching your traffic, Zai Khan at the sports desk, Melissa Puta with the morning brief in brief, and that is coming up over the next few minutes. Dowling Lechela has your business and market news throughout the morning, as well as Sipho Mantula with your Africa update at about 20 to 7 this morning. Through it all, please give me a call and weigh in on these and other topics, exercising your mind this morning. The number to dial 086 000 2032. Your WhatsApp voice notes, please send those through to 061 410 4107. We are at SAFM Radio on X. We are SAFM Radio on Facebook and Instagram. And as always, we are live on our YouTube channel. That is SAFM Radio. So we've got lots of ground to cover, folks. Let's get it started.
Specsavers cares about your vision. Glaucoma is known as the silent thief of sight, as most cases don't have any symptoms. Get tested today. Specsavers.
Rise and shine every weekday morning on Expresso.
Now, whether it's a motivational Monday or even a Health Tuesday, this is the best way to start your day.
Let our trending tech keep you ahead of the curve.
Join us online and vote in our fashion poll.
Elevate your cooking skills every Wednesday.
It's the best and morning entertainment.
So wake up with us.
6 to 9 a.m. on S3.
Cheers.
The Blue Diamonds want to shine all the way from kickoff to the final whistle, while the Rockets plan to rock up with a strong winning mentality. This is the Hollywood Bet Super League. Experience the exciting battle between JVWFC and TS Galaxy Queens on Sunday 20 April at 2:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Hey Msansi, autumn may be here, but we're extending the sunshine on our blue sky offers at Ford. Get a new Everest XLT from only 942,000 Rand or just 9,999 per month when financed through Ford Credit, an authorized financial services and registered credit provider. 10% deposit, primeless 5%, 40% residual. And remember, every blue sky offer comes standard with our Ford family promise. That's just 9,999 at your nearest Ford dealer today. T&Cs apply.
Big stories of the day. Hashtag the morning brief.
13 minutes after 6. Let's turn to Melissa Puta now with the morning brief in brief. Melissa, good morning. We start in Gauteng. Tell me about the Gauteng Education MEC, Matume Chelwane, and the concern that he has about gang-related violence in areas like Orange Farm.
Morning, Thulasizwe. So there has been a recent spike in gang-related violence at schools in Orange Farm. On the 11th of April, a student at Teta Secondary School was stabbed by known gang members, which later prompted retaliation. Another incident occurred yesterday at Vulanindlela Secondary School, where a grade 11 learner was stabbed by a grade 10 pupil who is now in custody. The Gauteng Department of Education has condemned these incidents, and in collaboration with SAPS, they have deployed patrols, conducted search operations, and they're offering psychosocial support. The implicated students will face suspension and disciplinary measures, but the MEC has urged parents and communities to play a proactive role in safeguarding learners.
Yeah, a really concerning situation. The last thing we need, more violence in our society, particularly manifesting in schools. Melissa, tell me about the visit by the Deputy Minister of Health, Dr. Joe Phatla, in the Gauteng MEC for Health to Olivenhout Bosch Clinic. What was that about?
So this visit, it was following complaints about medicine shortages at the clinic in Tshwane. While no widespread shortages were found, the investigation highlighted the need for better stock management and system maintenance, amongst other things. Phatla said that he noted that there was an increasing strain on the healthcare system due to rising patient numbers, including high demand from foreign nationals. He said that despite the fully allocated budget, the system is nearing capacity, and he said that there would be discussions about possible foreign government support and policy reforms, and the Deputy Health Minister will be on the show in the 8 o'clock hour to unpack more of that.
Yeah, and this is a sad story, your third story there, Melissa. A giant of the arts in this country, someone who it feels like he's been a part of our lives forever, really.
Forever.
Yeah. Tell me about the passing of Ntate Don Mlangeni.
So Ntate Don Mlangeni Nawa, who has graced our screens for decades, is known for, numerous iconic roles like La Kasha in Good is Nice. He's known for King Langa in Shaka Ilembe, just to name a few. His colleagues said that he would be remembered as a generous and very talented actor who brought scripts to life with natural ease and always elevated those around him. His legacy as a cultural icon and storytelling legend will continue to inspire generations to come. It's so sad because we grew up, seeing this man on our screen.
Absolutely.
And it's such a big, big loss for the industry.
It is indeed. Thank you for that. That's Melissa Puta there with your morning brief in brief. Absolutely a sad moment for South Africa and the arts in this country, the passing of Ntate Don Mlangeni Nawa. May his soul rest in peace.
Thulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
Right, let me give you a sense of what your weather will be looking like on this Thursday. Many of you preparing to travel, so let's get you ready and primed for the road ahead. Fortunately, I see no impact-based warnings, and that's a good thing because that means the Weather Service is not giving a warning for extreme weather that has an impact on conditions, including infrastructure, etc. So we skip straight then to telling you what the weather for the rest of the country will be looking like today. Pretoria will be partly cloudy with isolated showers and thunder showers with a minimum of 12 and a maximum of 23. Johannesburg, same conditions, partly cloudy with isolated showers and thunder showers, 9 to 21. Mbombela will be cloudy with isolated showers and thunder showers, 16 to 21. Polokwane will have morning fog in places, otherwise cloudy with isolated showers and thunder showers, 14 to 20. Mahikeng will be partly cloudy, 12 to 26. Bloemfontein, fine, 7 to 22. Kimberley, fine, 9 to 23. Uppington, fine, 8 to 25. Cape Town will be fine with a minimum of 18 and a maximum of 31. George will be partly cloudy with fog patches in the morning, otherwise fine with a minimum of 11 and a maximum of 21. Gqeberha will be cloudy in the morning, otherwise partly cloudy, 13 to 21. East London, cloudy with isolated showers and rain, 15 to 21. Durban will be partly cloudy with isolated showers and rain with a minimum of 18 and a maximum of 23. Richards Bay, partly cloudy with isolated showers and rain, 18 to 24. And finally, Pietermaritzburg will have morning fog, otherwise partly cloudy with isolated showers, 10 to 21.
Honey, what are you doing?
I'm stretching for tonight.
I thought you're not dancing at bachelorette parties anymore.
Baby, we need the money to put Johnny through matriek mos.
And what's the police uniform for?
The clients feel safer when I wear it.
No, man, just sell your bucky to We Buy Cars. They give the best prices and they pay you within minutes.
Okay, but can I just go and dance one more time, please? You know how much I love it.
No, the buyer's already on his way here.
Wow, okay.
Strapped for cash? Just sell your vehicle to We Buy Cars. The easiest way to sell your car by far.
Football intelligence will be tested between the students, University of Johannesburg and Tshwane University of Technology. They are both eager to go an extra mile for victory. This is the Hollywood Bet Super League. Witness the Varsity Derby, UJ Ladies versus TUT Ladies on Sunday 20 April at 11:30 a.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Worldview Update, bringing you closer to international or global news.
All right, it's 20 minutes after 6. We're just battling a little bit to get a hold of our guest for this morning. But the story that we want to highlight for you, and it has triggered quite a significant amount of debate. On Monday, the American billionaire Jeff Bezos's Blue Origin space exploration company made history when it sent a star-studded all-female crew to the edge of space. The passengers included Bezos' partner Lauren Sanchez, journalist Gayle King, and pop star Katy Perry, she of the Eye of the Tiger. It's triggered widespread debate about its true value, with some hailing it as a win for space tourism, science and feminism, while others decry it as a shameless publicity stunt and a perverse display of privilege that added no value to space exploration. So let's welcome Martin Snow, the research chair in space weather with an emphasis on solar physics. Also, he's an extraordinary professor in the astronomy department of the University of the Western Cape. Good morning to you, Martin, and thank you for your time. Thank you for joining us once again. So let's start with the Blue Origin's, it's called NS-31 mission. And it had the 6 women, so an all-female crew. Just tell me about how it played out. It took about, 11 minutes thereabout to get to the edge of space?
Right. So as you correctly pointed out, there's a lot of different ways to think about this mission. I do agree that it certainly was a publicity stunt. But the point of that would be to attract attention to the business of Blue Origins, but also the participation of women in space. So I can see there's kind of both sides have a good point there.
So you believe both sides have a good point, but just tell me what it meant for space tourism, because half of the crew, really, half of the 6, are not people who are steeped in space research or anything like that, or in the sciences. In fact, about 4, as I count the people that were part of that, about 4. There was a film producer, there was Gail King, the veteran journalist and broadcaster, Katy Perry, Amanda Nguyen, who is a Nobel Peace Prize nominee, but only 2 had some kind of link to space science as well as aviation.
Yeah, no, I totally agree that the primary emphasis clearly was to, advertise space tourism, something that the very rich can do, regular people can't. So having celebrities like Katy Perry and so on, there, attracts attention. But the positive part is, by having a crew of all women, it does make people think about the role of women in space. I mean, often the headline says this is the first all-female crew, but there actually was an all-female crew launched by the Russians back in the 1960s. It was just one person, but it was a woman who was, the sole crew member on a mission back in, I think, 1962 or something, before even I was born.
So this was the 11th human flight by Blue Origin, and this being the mission NS-31. Where does it place us in terms of this idea that one day, jetting off to space will be as simple as taking a flight to, I don't know, some destination in Europe, or does it remain prohibitive and remain quite distant, given the kind of wealth that many of the people that were part of this mission command, but also that Jeff Bezos, the resources that Jeff Bezos himself and Blue Origin put into this? Are we any closer to that reality of space travel being as simple as taking a flight to Mauritius or something?
Well, I can't imagine that we're anywhere near that level of that it's still going to cost millions of dollars. And this flight lasted 10 minutes, right? They got up above the atmosphere a little bit and came back down. And it's always going to be, you're going to space to be in space a little bit and then come back down. It's not like it's an effective way to travel from one place on the Earth to another place on the Earth. So that's never going to be it. It's going to always be that, I went up and into space and, saw the stars and looked down on the planet and so on. It's definitely always going to be a luxury thing that's not a practical use.
Yeah.
As we may have talked about before, there are, space stations like the International Space Station where you stay up there for a long time, and that's how you can do science research to understand the effects of microgravity and all the emissions from the sun and trapped particles in the magnetosphere and so on. So no, this is definitely just a stroll, a drive through the park.
Yeah,
kind of thing.
Yeah. A drive through the park, Martin, but tell me about the kind of conditions that they would have experienced, these women, as they were up there. I'm told that the key critical barrier is what's known as the Kármán line. Tell me about that line, because apparently they just breached that and experienced weightlessness for a bit, probably saw some really great sights of the Earth before coming back down.
Right. Yeah, so the Kármán line is essentially, you decide where does the atmosphere stop and where does it become space. So, the density of the air gets less and less and less. It drops off exponentially, and even very far out, there's still a little bit of the atmosphere, few molecules, and so on. That demarcation is defined as, the density of the air is low enough that an airplane couldn't get lift no matter how fast it went. Right. So normally an airplane, the wing is curved enough so that when it's moving fast, there's less pressure on top of the wing than on the bottom, and that's what makes lift. Right. That's how airplanes fly. So as you get to less and less atmosphere, eventually it doesn't matter how fast the plane is going, there isn't enough atmosphere to get lift. So yeah, they went above that. It's like 100 kilometers above the surface.
All right.
So they went up there and essentially made a big arc. So at the top of it, they're weightless. You can do that in an airplane. The airplanes that make loops in the air to produce brief periods of weightlessness.
Right.
And they did that for several minutes.
Yeah. All right, Martin, I've got to thank you for your time and your insights as always. That's Martin Snow, research chair in space weather with an emphasis on solar physics, but also an extraordinary professor in the astronomy department at UWC.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Good morning to you, Zai. So after, dealing with Sundowns, Kaizer Chiefs are being urged now to build on that and make it a consistent performance.
Yes.
Yeah.
Consistency is going to be key. That's the operative word, because that's the curse they're now holding at the moment. They have to beat the curse of inconsistency, and let's hope they can defeat it. But we'll hear from Matla Basango, the former Kaizer Chiefs and Bafana International, believing that Amakozi's 2-1 win over Mamelodi Sundowns in the Nedbank Cup this past weekend will lift the confidence. But again, Chiefs need to show consistency.
I think this win will most definitely do a world of wonders for these guys, because now, when you win a big game, it gives you like that motivation factor that you can build momentum from it. Now everyone is confident that we can be able to win. We beat Sundowns. Why not beat cheaper? So I think this was a massive boost morale for the team. I won't lie. Now it's just a matter of being consistent, that's all.
Elsewhere, Arsenal dumped out the holders Real Madrid 2-1 in Spain last night, completing a 5-1 aggregate victory for Mikel Arteta's side and set up a Champions League semi-final against Paris Saint-Germain. The other match, Inter Milan drew 2-2 with Bayern Munich to set up a Champions League semi-final against Barcelona. A draw on the night in blustery Milan conditions, but it was enough for Vincent Kompany's side to continue their bid to be crowned Kings of Europe for a 7th time. Elsewhere, Newcastle soared into third in the Premier League with a 5-0 thrashing of Crystal Palace to close in on a return to Champions League next season. And rugby, Connacht head coach Pete Wilkins has left his role ahead of a 2-match URC tour of South Africa. The Irish club, who are 13th on the log but still well in playoff contention, face the Stormers in Cape Town and the Lions in Johannesburg over the next fortnight. Wilkins has been sick, and that's for several weeks. And finally, cricket. South Africa's Marco Jansen, the star in the IPL last night, turning heads with a performance that helped the Punjab Kings to a 16-run victory over the Kolkata Knight Riders. Defending 112, Jansen ripped through the KKR top order, removing Sunil Narayan and finishing with figures of 3 for 17, his best in this year's tournament, and dismissing Andre Russell with a searing delivery just as the Caribbean big hitter looked dangerous. And that wicket sealed the match and sent the Punjab Kings to 4th on the log. More sport, top of the hour. I'm Zai Khan.
Good morning, I'm Anne Musa. In the headlines, the Northwest Education Department says it will investigate how a primary school on the outskirts of Mahikeng handled an incident in which an 8-year-old learner died and a 10-year-old sister was admitted to hospital. The Reserve Bank suspension of the process to transition from the Social Security Agency SASSA's gold cards to Postbank's black ones has sparked uncertainty among social grant beneficiaries. The bank has cited Postbank's compliance regarding the security systems, limited banking infrastructure and poor communication as reasons for the temporary suspension of the process. And the White House says an American resident the Trump administration deported to El Salvador last month will never be allowed to return. I'll have details on these and other stories at 7.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. First of today's truck crashes. This is on the N3, which is potentially a busy route this morning. N3 going out of Joburg down towards Durban. It's happened between Dustville and Thalias. Truck overturning, blocking pretty much 1.5 lanes. There will be queuing pressure into that scene because of the volume. And of course, a little bit later, when the authorities arrive to clear it, it will result in some additional closures. So just a heads up, a busy morning out of Joburg through towards Durban direction, approaching Thalias. Also, get this, only one lane open on Town Hill this morning. If you're moving from Pietermaritzburg up towards Hilton, there is a backlog and a half of very slow moving traffic once you get sort of north of Chatterton Road up towards Peter Brown and that Town Hill area. A little bit slow at Market Road as well on your way to Durban, but that does seem to be easing rather than getting worse. Let me just zoom in on that, and yeah, it's busy coming out of Pietermaritzburg to Market Road, but it seems to be moving better. Cape Town N2 inbound fairly heavy this morning between the airport and the Unsmudged Drive and the N1 from Cluttercliff Hill. Busy going slowly right through to Kuberg Interchange. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide. Leading the conversation. The business update on SAFM.
All right, let's say good morning to Ntauling Lechela. Good morning to you, Ntauling. Let's start with U.S. retail sales. Tell me about you're saying that they've topped estimates for the month of March?
That's right, Tulas. And you know, they aren't that great, but I guess economists were expecting lower sales. Those numbers coming in 1.4% higher from February, surpassing the 1.2% forecast. The year-over-year increase was at 4.6%, and vehicle and parts dealers saw a 5.3% surge in sales. Many economists say this is likely due to consumers trying to beat President Trump's tariffs. The strong sales data suggests, or the upbeat sales data suggests, consumers remain somewhat resilient despite economic uncertainty and looming tariffs. Now, economists attribute the surge to consumers stocking up ahead of expected price hikes. Other categories such as sporting goods and building materials also saw significant gains. Now, the report contrasts with recent sentiment readings, which show widespread concern about the economy and inflation. This includes downbeat consumer confidence. I think a few days ago, we got the Fed survey where consumers were concerned about unemployment, economic growth, as well as inflation. Despite this, the consumer seems to still be spending. There are concerns, however, about the sustainability of the growth in sales and the economic picture.
Darling, tell me about what the WTO has been saying about the outlook for global trade. It seems to me that this is a natural consequence of some of the activity we've seen in the last 3-4 months.
You're absolutely right, Thulas. And the organization has now downgraded its forecast for global trade due to the impact of soaring U.S. tariffs and trade uncertainty. The volume of world trade is expected to decline by 0.2% this year, a reversal from earlier expectations. The U.S. is likely to be the hardest hit, according to the World Trade Organization, while Asia and Europe may see modest growth. But the WTO warns that massive disruptions in U.S.-China trade may lead to Chinese exporters seeking new markets, increasing competition for third markets. Now, the trade organization also forecasts a rebound in trade growth of about 2% next year, but if the U.S. pushes ahead with higher tariffs and further announcements on tariffs, the decline in world trade could be as much as 1.5%. Additionally, services trade will also be affected, with commercial services growth expected to slow to 4% this year and 4.1% in 2026, down from 6.8% last year. The WTO's revised forecast just highlights the challenges facing global trade amid what some would call rising protectionist policies.
Give us our first update on the markets, Ndauleng, for the morning.
So U.S. stocks are still in the red, and this despite upbeat retail sales figures. Markets closing in the red overnight on that front. Trade mixed back at home, with the all-share managing to close yesterday's session 0.2% higher. The rand, in the meantime, remaining steady. It's sitting at 18.85 to the dollar this hour. Then over in Asia, markets are trading mostly higher amid hopes of lower negotiated reciprocal tariffs on U.S. trade partners in the region, with Japan making progress in trade talks with the U.S.
All right, that's Ndauleng Lechela with the first report for you this morning. Ndauleng will be back with more insights just after 7:30, and that's in the second hour of the morning brief.
Africa Update on SAFM.
Let's say good morning to Advocate Sipho Mantula Raz. We start in Senegal. Tell me about what this lawmaker in Senegal is saying about former President Macky Sall having to face consequences.
Refreshing morning, Thulas and Jumbo Africa, to the listeners. Thulas, yesterday in Senegal, one of the lawmakers proposed an indictment to the former president for high treason. This stems from the report that came from the Court of Auditors that alleges that the former president, between 2019 and 2023, Thulas, there was an allegation of embezzlement of funds, money laundering, illicit enrichment. But when we look at the current justice system in Senegal, they are saying to us only financial crimes are under investigation for now, but they are not ruling out future high treason should there be any sufficient evidence that comes up against the former president. When you look at the constitution, to us, for you to can prosecute the former president for the high treason, one will require a parliamentary approval and a trial before the High Court of Justice. As we have said to us, it might be an unprecedented legal case in the history of Senegal.
And then, Sipho, during the unrest in Mozambique, there was always this speculation and uncertainty about how many people had died exactly, with perhaps the government side trying to downplay the number of people who had died and the opposition saying actually the number is much higher. Tell me what Amnesty International has been able to collate and what figures they are presenting.
Thulas, what they are presenting, just to touch on the government figures that you have mentioned, government figures gave us only 96 people and only 17 police officers. But when you go to this damning report of yesterday, it is saying between October 21st and January 25th, 2025, they have picked up 300 people who have been killed, and they are calling the government and to bring them to account in terms of those human rights violations. They are also adding 3,000 people who were injured during those unrest. We know them very well, to us. It was a post-election violence that has resulted in many people losing their life. Finally, this report also to us talks about the restriction that was on the social media platforms such as Facebook, Instagram, and the messaging service of WhatsApp during the protest. So this is a damning report against the government of Frelimo Thulas, talking about the killings as well as the freedom of expression by its citizens.
And then, Sipho, you also have an update around the London conference, which is about the conflict in the Sudan. What's come out of that?
Nothing came out per se, despite that there were pledges, but the issue was to say that there was a need to formulate what they called a contact group to mediate between the two parties. And here again, we see Saudi Arabia, Egypt, United Arab Emirates trying to take a lead to us in terms of bringing the two leaders in terms of mediation process. But when we look at the contributions to us, as yesterday I mentioned, that the UK wanted to put 158 million pounds, but when you look the figures that are needed, it is a lot to us. It is more than 1 billion. The EU has pledged 590 million. And we don't know from the AU to us what they have pledged, because there were many high-level representatives from Ethiopia, Kenya, Qatar, the South Sudan. And I asked myself, Thulas, was it just a London detour, but not dealing with the crisis of Sudan of 2023?
Lastly, Sipho, in your historical archives, you're taking us back to 17 April 1986, when a literary icon of our country fell.
Thulas, this was also a Pan-Africanist of note. He joined the PAC actually in 1960 after the Shavilanga massacre when he was in Botswana. Born in Pietermaritzburg from a white woman and a black unnamed father. Thulas, very sad not to know the father's name, but we know the mother's name. We are talking about Bessie Amelia Emery Head, who died at the age of 49 years, Thulas. But as we can reflect, for our listeners, they will recall some of his writings, 3 key books, Thulas, from his novels, When Rain Clouds Gather, 1968, Maru, which many of our listeners, young people who are doing grade 12, they might be studying Maru, Thulas, 1971. And the last one, A Question of Power, 1973. This was a great woman, Thulas, a journalist of note also, Thulas, for the Golden City Post, as well as the Drum Magazine, a teacher, as well as a Pan-Africanist. As I said, he joined the PAC in exile when he was in Gaborone, Botswana. And his legacy to us, finally, for our listeners, I think it will be proper to say that there is a museum named after him, actually, in Serowe, Gaborone, in South Africa. You have municipality in Pietermaritzburg that have named Bessie Head Library in her honor in 2007. Asante sana Thulas, as I was leading the conversation, SFM observing the Freedom Month.
Sipho Mantula there with your Africa update. Thank you for that, Sipho.
Upgrade your TV game with the SABC TV license rewards. It's your golden ticket to VIP treatment. Imagine signing up at sabctvlicenserewards.co.za, breezing through a few steps, and bam! Instant reward, just for being you. Plus, pocket up to 500 Rand back. That's the cherry on top. But wait, it's not just about the cash. We're talking about sweet deals and epic rewards. Think discounts on all your favorite things, from shopping to travel and entertainment. Your payment unlocks a world of fun. So, why wait? Dive into the excitement. Join the SABC's TV license rewards at sabctvlicenserewards.co.za. Hit those buttons and watch your TV experience level up. T's and C's apply. Remember, TV license fees aren't just payments, they make a difference. The rivalry between African football giants will never end. Masandawana battles it out with the Red Devils. The South tackles the North. This is the first leg semi-final encounter of the Total Energies CAF Champions League. Experience the exhilaration of African football. Mamelodi Sundowns versus Al Ahly FC. The Saturday 19 April at 2:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus, SABC One, and SABC radio stations. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
At Duba Tradeport, we specialize in helping businesses grow through state-of-the-art manufacturing, infrastructure, logistics services, and international trade links. We're an advanced environment for doing business where most ambitious companies gather. If you're seeking progressive opportunities and looking to build mutually beneficial relationships, move to dubatradeport.co.za to see your business grow beyond potential.
Thulasizwe Simelane on the Morning Brief. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
15 minutes to 7 on this Thursday. Let's turn to this. The Forum for South Africa is threatening legal action against government over its alleged failure to shut down illegal spaza shops, which it claims are putting children's lives at risk. This comes after a recent food poisoning incident involving an 8-year-old boy in Soweto and amid growing public concern following the deaths of 23 children last year, which was linked in one way or another to unsafe food from unregulated shops. So let's speak to Tebogo Mashilompane, who is the leader of Forum for South Africa. Good morning to you and thank you for your time. This is exactly the kind of situation that the mass registration of spaza shops and other food handling businesses was meant to have achieved over the period from around November, December last year until March this year. Are you saying that despite all that undertaking, all of that effort and time and energy spent, nothing has changed?
Yeah, good morning, Thulasizwe and the listeners. Yes, the truth is nothing has changed because we're still facing the very same thing again. Last week also two kids died in Northwest. And then with the same issue of poisoning, there's another one again somewhere in Limpopo. It is alleged that he also ate something. So it means we are back to where we were last year. So what our worry is, what is it that our leaders want to see? Do they want to see all the kids dead or what? Because you cannot just put measures in place, but there's no enforcement. Because this has been always the problem in South Africa that for 30 years there are regulations, proper policies, but they are not enforced. And then who must enforce these things? Because when the community enforces the law, and then they get arrested, they get victimized. And even the police come and say, no, but you are not supposed to close the spaza shops. So you're now putting the lives of citizens in danger because some will say we'll rise because we will not leave our children to die like this. But at the same time, they become victimized, some are targeted, some are even killed because of this particular issue. So that is why we say the time has come that we need to show example by through taking legal action against ministers who are not working, people who lack oversight, people who are not doing their duties. They must be taken to task, and personally so.
Tell me about that a bit more, because it seems to me from the comments I've seen from you that you have a particular concern that there was the registration, many businesses came forward and complied with that requirement, but it seems to me that you are arguing that ministers and other agents of government are failing to deal with those businesses that did not register and did not comply. You are saying that those continue to operate.
Yeah, I'll give a simple example. In Gauteng, the MEC gave a stat. It says there were around 17,000 plus applications. Only 4,000, around 4,000 plus registered. So what happened to the other people? So why are they not closing? The very same spaza shop that it is alleged that the boy ate from, it is illegal. It is operating illegally, so it is not registered. And then on our own oversight, we just walked around and targeted certain areas. You know, in villages, nothing is happening. In townships, it's I don't know, maybe it's 1 or 2 who registered, but people are not registering. And for shops, obviously, in townships. So, and the target was mostly in Gauteng. Go to Northwest, you'll be so shocked. Go to other areas again in Limpopo, you'll be so shocked. So this is the problem. That is why we are saying they just put measures in place, but they don't enforce such particular things. Because immediately when you say there's a deadline, you need to say anyone found to be operating now on, you'll be arrested immediately because that's a criminal offense. You don't have the license to operate, but you are operating. Why are we arresting people driving without licenses? But you are unable to arrest people who trade even illicit and dangerous goods, but we don't arrest them. This is a criminal offense. So if the government cannot practice their laws, then we need to remind them through the Constitution that as citizens we have the constitutional right also to take them to court.
Tell me about that then, Tebogo. This legal action that you are contemplating, what do you have in mind? What kind of remedy would you be seeking in that legal action? And how far are you in the conceptualization thereof?
Yeah, so after we met obviously Monday with the legal team and they gave advice. One, they said, let us build a case. We send in the letter to the minister First, with 4 questions that the minister needs to answer. One being that why are sponsor shops still opening? And then 2, when is it closing the sponsor shops? 3, what is difficult with him not closing the sponsor shops? So obviously we waiting for that. It's 7 days, and then I think the SG will be sending the letter today morning, and then it's 7 days. After 7 days, if the minister did not respond or did not respond satisfactory meaning that the sponsor shop must close. So if he does not say anything or he responds differently, we are immediately making an application in the High Court.
All right, I've got to thank you for that. We'll be watching that very closely.
Yes.
That's Tebogo Mashilompane, who is leader of the Forum for South Africa.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
2 issues that we're tracking on the busy N3 route today. One is the collision scene, a truck overturning between Dustville and Villiers. So if you're on the N3 heading down towards the coast, down towards Durban, there are bigger volumes today. We've just checked some of the numbers. That's not surprising, given the fact that we are on the eve of an Easter break. So bigger numbers, and there will be some delays approaching that scene just south of the Dustville exit. It's an obstruction at the moment, but once recovery gets underway, that'll cause some additional delay as well. The other big issue that we're keeping an eye on is the run from Pietermaritzburg heading up Town Hill. Just one lane open there this morning, so if you're on your way towards Hilton and Howick, there is quite a backlog. There were some additional lane closures earlier this morning down by Market Road. It looks like they've probably been lifted. That really big backlog from New England Road has made its way through, and it's looking pretty close to normal at this stage. Gauteng highways, well, the N3 is heavy today, backlogging from Elands all the way through to Galulis for links onto the N12 and R24 to get out to Boksburg in the airport. N17, a crash near Wits Rifles Road. If you're coming in from Springs and Brakpan, that's a delay this morning. At Cape Town, fairly busy on the highways. N1 from Plattekloof all the way to Kuiper, get a change. N2, backing up from the airport right through to Hospital Bend. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
El Clasico is here. Barcelona takes on Real Madrid in the Copa del Rey final. And you can catch every moment on S3 or stream live on SABC+. Watch 2 of the world's biggest teams fight for Spanish football's ultimate trophy. Don't miss out on the heart-pounding action. Head to sabcplus.com to register right now. Or tune into S3 on Saturday 26 April at 9:30 p.m. for the live broadcast. This is the Copa del Rey final. Barcelona versus Real Madrid. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport, your home of great football. For the love of the game.
Thulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
7 minutes to 7. Let's turn to this story now. The country's law enforcement system is grappling with a severe shortage of detectives as more than 10,000 have exited the police force over the past decade, with the current number of detectives standing at just over 16,000, down from 27,000 about a decade ago. The South African Police Service is under pressure to adopt its investigative approach to cope with the increased workload and shrinking manpower. Let's welcome Lieutenant General Shadrack Sibiya, who is Deputy National Commissioner for Crime Detection. Good morning to you, and thank you for your time. I don't want to get the figures wrong, because I've just been going through the figures related to the answer to Parliament that was given by the Minister last year, and I'm comparing them with the figures I just cited now of about 16,000 detectives in total. So in your own words, where do we stand in terms of capacity of detectives, and how many have we lost over the last while?
Look, good morning to Thulasizwe, and good morning to the listeners at home. It is indeed true that we have lost such a number of plus minus 10,000 over a decade, but on the other hand, it is also important to note that we have been also capacitating the detectives, and at this point in time, we are almost just over 24,000. We are more than 24,000 detectives, so we have capacitated. It's not like we haven't been doing anything. We are fully capacitated at this point in time, although we are not where we want to be.
Yeah, no, I'm glad I asked that question because the figures being reported were 16,000. So you're saying you are at about 24,000 detectives. That would represent something of an increase from when the minister answered that question around August last year, where he was talking about 22,000. So that does represent an increase. But as you say, you are still under pressure. What is the impact of the shortage of detectives? At some point, there was talk about 1.9 million dockets lying there gathering dust because of this lack of capacity.
We are more than 24,000, and as the detectives, we are doing more in making sure that we fully capacitate the detectives. We have a plan in place where we are also transferring members from other departments to capacitate. We are also re-enlisting old members, old experienced members that are coming back to join us. And let me correct this. Dockets are not just lying there gathering dust. What we are doing is that we're just trying to make sure that we don't have one member carrying over 300 dockets or 500 dockets by making sure that we capacitate so that we don't have a situation where you find that when we talk about a 1.9 docket or backlog, we're just talking about those dockets that have been there for more than 6 months, and say a member shouldn't be carrying dockets as many as more than 100 or 200, but let us make sure that we have a limited number of dockets that must be carried by a member, but not over 200, 300, 400. So we want to increase our manpower or our capacity in such a way that we are going to see to it that members, as they investigate, they are able to investigate, but not carrying high number of dockets. So that is why we're pushing that we capacitate the detectives.
But how do you ensure that? How do you ensure that each detective is not carrying a large number of dockets, 100, 200, 300 at a time, when crimes continue to be committed on a daily basis? You and I know about our crime statistics in the country. So, and your capacity is not what it used to be. Yes, you've invested in increasing capacity, but you're not where you wanted to be. So how can you possibly ensure that no member carries a large load of case dockets?
What we are doing, we are going to projectize the 1.9 dockets where we are calling back old members, old experienced members, to come and work on that backlog. And we are in the process because we are busy re-enlisting all the members that left the detectives. And some of them, we are approaching them not to leave at this point in time so that we can push the workload. So as to make sure that as the docket is reported, it gets attended to immediately and not be concentrating and focusing on old dockets. So what we are doing is just to make sure that this 1.9 dockets, the old dockets, we've got the team that is called back to come and deal with the backlog, and members have been responding positively on that.
So factually then, Lieutenant General, until those members are in place and investigating this 1.9 million dockets, those dockets are sitting there not being investigated, the backlog dockets.
No. It's not necessarily we're saying that those dockets are somewhere in a corner. Remember, these are dockets that are being investigated on a daily basis by members. And what we are just trying to do is just to make sure that we expedite and we push for members to be able to move quicker, investigate quicker, right. And we don't have a docket that is to be investigated for more than 2 years or 3 years. So we're pushing the workload, at the same time we're pushing our response time.
And the other big problem that continues to plague the SAPS, Lieutenant General, is the phenomenon of dockets being stolen, disappearing somewhere in the system. What have you put in place to plug to plug that gap?
I think we did hear at the crime summit the minister talking about digitalization of dockets, where it will be something of the past, where you digitalize a docket, information put in the system in such a way that you work smart. You no longer work with a physical docket. The docket is in the system. Even the supervisor can supervise from the system itself. So this is what is being put in place as we speak.
And lastly, tell me about this lean thinking that you've been championing. What does it entail in relation to these backlogs of dockets and the resources that you're working with?
I talk about lean thinking. I'm talking about the fact that we don't have capacity or we're struggling with capacity at this point in time. we must be able to do more with less. With the little manpower that we do, we must still be able to push. Like you have seen the statistics, it still looks green. Prisons are full, the members are operating. We have arrested over a weekend. When you talk about Operation Chanela, over a weekend we are arresting more than 15,000 and arrested by the detectives. And since the establishment of Chanel, I can tell you that we have arrested more than 1 million. And this shows that even if we don't have manpower where we want to be, we're still pushing very hard with the little resources that we have. That is what I mean when I talk about lean thinking, achieving more with less.
All right, thank you for that. That's Lieutenant General Shadrack Sibiya, who is Deputy National Commissioner for Crime Detection. Let's check in now with N. Musa with the latest news.
Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. SMS out to 30754. Now that's good news.
In our top stories, Northwest Education reacts to claims of negligence after learner's death and issuing of Postbank's Black SASSA cards suspended. Good morning. The Northwest Education Department says it will investigate how a primary school in Mahikeng handled an incident in which an 8-year-old learner died and her 10-year-old sister was admitted to hospital. It's alleged the G.J. Podile primary school learners ate snacks they bought from a vendor in Ramusadi village. They apparently complained of stomach cramps while at school. The older girl is still in the intensive care unit in hospital. Speaking anonymously, this family member says they are struggling to come to terms with the tragedy.
We feel somebody must be held accountable. If indeed the school got negligent and they did not take their part to help the child in their care, obviously they must be held accountable. And the other thing, if this death is because of the snacks that the children consumed, bought along the road as they go to the school, we also want authorities to trace that so that most of our children are going to be saved.
Mapata Mulokwane is the department spokesperson.
It's not true that the school did not respond on time. We have tried many times to reach the family while the learner shown some signs of illness, and unfortunately we couldn't find the parents on time. The teacher used her own vehicle to transport both of the learners because there was a bit of a delay from the ambulance to arrive at the school on time. So as the Department of Education, on the matter of the learner being forced to wipe the vomit, we can highlight that we are still going to further investigate if those allegations are really true.
The Reserve Bank's suspension of the process to transition from the Social Security Agency SASSA's gold cards to Postbank's black ones has sparked uncertainty among social grant beneficiaries. The bank has cited Postbank's compliance regarding the security systems, limited banking infrastructure and poor communication as reasons for the temporary suspension of the process. Meanwhile, some social grant beneficiaries in the Northern Cape say they are still confused about the transition process. Kimberley-based pensioner Matsidi Sonyana Seleka is one of them.
I am not changed my card because I'm very confused. I don't know what to do about this SASSA card because SASSA make us confused.
The Health Department has urged travellers to be vigilant as they head to various destinations ahead of the Easter weekend. This after it announced a slight increase in malaria cases, particularly in Limpopo, Mpumalanga and KwaZulu-Natal. The country has also seen outbreaks of the disease in neighbouring countries including Botswana, Eswatini, Namibia, Mozambique and Zimbabwe. The department spokesperson, Foster Mohale.
The department will remain on high alert in case of sudden peak in malaria local transmission. The disease is primarily transmitted through a bite of an infected female mosquito called Anopheles. Common malaria symptoms include fever, chills, headache, muscle pain, loss of appetite or vomiting. Therefore, anyone who experiences any of these symptoms should present at the nearest healthcare facility.
And finally, the White House says an American resident the Trump administration deported to El Salvador last month will never be allowed to return. Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt insists there is evidence that Kilmer Abrego Garcia is a member of the criminal gang MS-13.
Let me reiterate. Kilmar Abrego Garcia is an illegal alien, MS-13 gang member and foreign terrorist who was deported back to his home country. Abrego Garcia was arrested with two other well-known members of the vicious MS-13 gang. And two separate judges found that Abrego Garcia was a member of MS-13, and that finding has never been disputed.
Recapping the top story, the Northwest Education Department says it will investigate how a primary school in Mahikeng handled an incident in which an 8-year-old learner died and a 10-year-old sister was admitted to hospital. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
Those were the top stories for this hour. Don't miss out on a possible car insurance saving. SMS out to 30754 for a quote. Outsurance, where you always get something out.
You wouldn't want to pay more than you need to for electricity, so why overpay for car insurance? Switch to Outsurance and you could save big every month. Zandile, a 36-year-old woman, is a real Outsurance client who saves a mind-blowing 918 Rand a month on her 2024 Cherry Tiggo 1.5 litre. Isn't it time you got the real deal? Don't pay more. Switch and save today. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. With Outsurance, you always get something out. A licensed insurer and FSP, T's and C's online.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. Just getting our first peek at the N1 route. This is heading out of Pretoria towards Polokwane. It is forecast to be a very busy run over the next 24 hours and already queues around the Carousel Plaza area. So we are on the move on that route. Also bigger volumes noticeable on the N3 out of Gauteng down towards Durban, driving into a truck crash south of Heidelberg. In fact, just south of Dussville, exit down towards Villiers. Only the emergency lane open to get that higher volume traffic past the scene. So it will be a delay, and they've got to recover that truck. It will be a delay for some time this morning. Just factor in a bit of queue time there. Major backlogs getting out of Pietermaritzburg up to Hilton. One lane open at the top of Town Hill. So from sort of Chatterton Road up through Peter Brown on your way to Hilton, it's very heavily backed up. A lot of traffic on the N2 this morning as well. Prospecting through to Amunsum Tody through to Prospecting going north, and then M7 through Westwood Mall. A couple of queues to work through. And Cape Town today, N7 southbound. Still the roadworks just after 4 Trekker Road. Traffic already back through to Franz Conradi Drive. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
It's a very good morning to you in your SFM sports headlines. It's Champions League action where we've got the likes of Orlando Pirates chasing that elusive second star, and we'll bring you news from Cricket South Africa as they have a chase to find the white ball coach that's currently missing. All this and more just before 7:30.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
9 minutes after 7 on this Thursday. It's great to be in your company. We're into the second hour of the Morning Brief here on SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide. Let me tell you what's coming up in this hour. My colleagues Ayanda Mhlongo and Samgele Masego will come through and report on what have been really some of the key stories of the week. The first one, Ayanda Mhlongo, is on that story around the reopening of the inquest into the death of Inkosi Albert Luthuli. Nearly 6 decades after his passing on, the NPA is leading that particular process, and we are told that new forensic evidence, expert testimony, and historic documents will be brought to the fore throughout this process, with suggestions that his death may have been the result of a political assassination covered up by collusion between apartheid-era authorities, including the security police, prosecutors, and even magistrates. So Ayanda Mhlongo will be reporting to us over the next few minutes. Then Samgele Masego will come through and give you insights and analysis over the president's visit to the Eastern Cape and the undertaking really of oversight in the Eastern Cape around concerns around service delivery. The president there confronted with a lot of challenges that the Eastern Cape continues to face, and making the point that the financial, budgetary constraints should be no excuse for the effort and ensuring that there's coordination in improving quality of life. I'll be talking to Samgele Masego in the next few minutes. And then a bit later on in this hour, we will tell you about preparations for the Easter weekend, particularly ensuring safety as people travel and crisscross the country in traveling over the next few days. We'll hear from the organization called Crisis on Call. They have a road safety appeal where they are saying that the numbers that we report, 335 people that lost their lives over the Easter weekend in 2024, which was a significant increase from the year before, they are saying that these are not just numbers. They represent real people and preventable tragedies. They'll weigh in on some of what we can do to prevent those deaths over the Easter weekend. Through it all, I'll take your calls. Give me a call. The number to dial is 086 000 2032. I'll take your WhatsApp voice notes on 061 410 4107. The second hour of the Thursday edition of the Morning Brief starts now.
Have you recently migrated to the new TV licenses payment website? Make sure your account stays active by registering again or resetting your password. Don't miss out on all the fantastic new features our brand new website offers. Get registered today and stay connected with us. With the new website, get your payments done quickly and hassle-free with a wide range of services. So make sure you register to take advantage of all the great client features. Visit www.tvlic.co.za today. TV licenses. Do it for the things that matter.
The only talk radio morning breakfast show that makes sense. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane.
12 minutes after 7. Nearly 6 decades after Inkosi Albert Luthuli's controversial death, government has reopened the inquest into the circumstances surrounding the passing of the Nobel Peace Prize laureate and former President General of the African National Congress. As new evidence comes to light, the inquiry may offer long-awaited closure for his family and arguably represents a critical moment of reckoning for a nation still searching for truth and justice 3 decades after apartheid ended. Let's speak to Ayanda Mhlongo, SABC News reporter. Good morning to you, Ayanda. So this was the first week of hearings in this inquest. The official explanation was that Inkosi Albert Luthuli died from a train accident. Tell us what has come out in the first week. Does it talk to challenging that official finding of many years ago?
Yes, a very good morning to you. Good morning to the listeners. Well, absolutely. To go back, you'd know that the National Prosecuting Authority, through this inquest, wants the court to overturn that original finding of the September inquest in 1967, which, as you said, found that Chief Albert Luthuli had died. Chief Albert Luthuli's death was accidental, and as a result, no one is found criminally liable. And of course, as we've also mentioned, that the NPA intends to expose collusion in the initial inquest into Chief Luthuli's death. There have been 4 witnesses that have testified already now in this commission, but I think that notably would be the 2 last witnesses that have brought evidence to the commission. One being a senior investigator, Colonel Thomas Steyn, who as part of the investigation team, and of course you mentioned also they are bringing in historical documents, and that's exactly what this team has done. Colonel Steyn and his team were able to find 600-page documents through the National Archives Center, and in these documents contained letters from Chief Albert Lutuli. Just very briefly, some of those letters were to the Justice Department requesting that his restrictions, as we know at the time that he had been under house arrest, that the Justice Department relax some of those restrictions. And also, he had also sent letters to a local magistrate, Boswell, requesting that he see a doctor in Stanger as well as Durban. And it now has come out, confirmed by the African National Congress as well, with that the magistrate Boswell appears to be the same magistrate that presided over that 1967 inquest. And already there is a letter that Colonel Steyn made reference to in the court where the Magistrate Boswell had made a predetermination of the inquest where he had issued a letter before the 1967 the September inquest. In July, he had issued a letter basically saying that the death of Albert Lutuli was accidental. So that is just some of what has come out. But until us moving to the daughter-in-law, Wilhelmina Mary Lutuli, who has been the longest witness on the stand. She's testified now for over a day and a half. And she obviously now moving towards, one would say, the crux of the NPA's case. Basically speaking about, she was the last person to have seen Chief Albert Lutuli on the day that he died in the morning. She was also the first person to have been informed that he had been injured and was amongst the first family members to have arrived at the hospital. So she's painted a picture, one, of who Chief Albert Lutuli was, the times in which they were living, the conditions in which they lived at the time. But more importantly, right down to speaking about the state in which she found him at the hospital, speaking around the fact that when she arrived at the hospital, she found that he had a wound in his head, and this seems to be contrary to the findings of that initial investigation. Also, Attila, she has vehemently refuted reports which we said over the years have been reports that indicated that Chief Albert Lutuli was not well, that he might have had poor vision, poor hearing, and that he was unwell. And she even gave the court examples to sort of contradict what these reports had said. For example, she mentioned the fact that Chief Albert Lutuli was able to read the Bible, and she said, people know that the Bible has a very small font. He was able to read the Bible under candlelight. So this is just some of the examples that she was bringing to the court to refute some of these reports, which indicated initially had said that possibly Chief Albert Lutuli was not well at the time of the accident.
Is it your sense, Ayanda, that there's almost an approach that resembles concentric circles, in that it starts on the outside and slowly narrows its focus and zooming in more and more as more witnesses are called? What I'm asking is, for instance, this letter that you allude to that was referenced by Colonel Steyn, that has not been read onto the record yet, and that full record of 600 pages is not yet tabled such that it reveals the suspicion of collusion between police, surgeons, prosecutors, and magistrates. Is that the sense you are getting, that as more and more witnesses come, we will increasingly move in closer to the core of these concentric circles?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's exactly the picture that is starting to emerge. And I'll tell you that, we have been, at the court speaking after each of the witnesses just to get the reaction and the response from the family as well as the leaders of the African National Congress that have also been in court. And they are now saying, I'll just say, I was speaking to one of the family members, Attila, he even said to me, the pieces of the puzzle are starting to come together. So for them, it's starting to reveal what he was saying, that the family said all of these years, that they did not believe in the initial findings of that first inquest. And for them, they seem to be very happy at the manner in which this inquest is going, and obviously the evidence that has already been presented in court. So you are absolutely correct, Attila. It is starting to come together, especially if I take from what the family has said.
All right, I've got to thank you for that reporting. That's Ayanda Mhlongo, SABC News reporter there, watching the Inkosi Albert Lutuli inquest that has been reopened.
Spar Rewards brings you 5 days of even more now on, with up to 50% off. Get Spar Long Life Milk 6-pack. Buy any 2 for 170 Rand and save 30 Rand. Or 1 litre Spar 100% fruit juice. Buy any 2 for 32 Rand and save 32 Rand. Price is valid from 17 to 21 April while stocks last. Spar Rewards. Sign up for more.
The wait is over. I've been hustling, grinding, and now it's time for the glow up you've been waiting for. Unapologetically, May the Bay. From the grind to the glam. Anelezondo the glow up on Saturdays at 8 p.m. only on SABC 1, Mzansi for sure.
The Toffees want to convert pressure to pleasure by claiming maximum points against the reigning champions.
To put Everton level, he certainly does. No mistake. Beautifully done by Iliman Andai.
But the citizens are not interested in any outcome but victory.
And there's Grealish, and inside 2 minutes, City are in front. And Jack Grealish, his first Premier League.
This is the Premier League. Witness the mouth-watering clash between Everton FC and Manchester City FC on Saturday 19 April at 3:30 p.m. live on S3. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane.
21 minutes after 7. President Cyril Ramaphosa has voiced strong concerns over the dire state of service delivery in the Eastern Cape, highlighting the urgent need for improved governance and smarter budget allocations. This has happened during a cabinet visit to the province. Let's welcome SABC News senior political reporter Samgele Masego, who was covering and tracking that visit by the president. So Samgele, as the president was landing in the Eastern Cape, the Herald newspaper in Gqeberha coming out with a very powerful headline that said, "Welcome to our broken city, Mr. President," with those images that capture the state of dilapidation and decay, at least in that city. To what extent did he continue to be confronted by that reality of broken service delivery during the 2 days that he spent engaging with government officials there?
He continued to be confronted with that broken service delivery, particularly when he went through the reports and when he cited some of the comments and letters that were written to him by residents of the Eastern Cape. One such letter that caught my attention that he was quoting from in his opening remarks with the provincial executive of the province was when he quoted a letter that was written to him by Bantu General Hulumisa, the current Deputy Minister of Defense and Military Veterans within the country, and also the former Transkei Homeland leader who essentially made a coup within his area, where he spoke about how Hulumisa spoke about the state of decay of infrastructure within the province, the vastness of the province, the lack of resources that are there within the province to make sure that it catches up to other provinces, particularly after the amalgamation of the various Bantustans that were there within the Eastern Cape at the time. But it goes further to when the president quoted the premier of the province, Oscar Lubabalo Mabuyane, when he said that it is the Chinese who told him to build roads, and roads would create jobs and investments into the province. But the president said that it is equally important to build bridges, because these particular bridges that have been swept away during the disasters within the province have ultimately also contributed to the decay of the province, to monies being siphoned out of public coffers without proper controls within the public procurement system in the Eastern Cape. And these are some of the points that the president raised, also highlighting some of the good that the province has done, but he was not particularly chuffed by the Nelson Mandela Bay Metro Municipality governance system, and also how politicians have seemingly and councillors have failed within this particular metro to get it to the standard in which it should be at.
And then, Samgele, I was struck in his summary, I was struck by the fact that the president elevated the issue of the rise in crime in the Eastern Cape, as well as a housing backlog. Was that based on him being confronted by this reality in his engagements?
It's not only particularly by him being confronted by this reality, he seemingly has a very close lineage to the Eastern Cape and is particularly focused on the development of the Eastern Cape. But remember, in one State of the Nation address, he spoke about the building of a new smart city that interlocks KZN and the Eastern Cape along those Margate, Port Shepstone areas and Wild Coast areas, and with particular that bridge that is being built in that area that interlinks KwaZulu-Natal and the Eastern Cape, saying that particular belt must be a new smart city that links all of the Eastern Cape and KwaZulu-Natal and ultimately the rest of South Africa. He spoke about that bullet train that moves from Gauteng to Eastern Cape, Cape Town, ultimately to Durban. So it does tell you that he looks at the development of South Africa's coastline and particularly the Eastern Cape very keenly. But it also comes at a time when a lot of stories have been written and covered of families in the Eastern Cape still living in mud, dilapidated houses that are large. Those are people who are largely neglected in the deep rural Eastern Cape. We've seen those particular shows being covered by the SABC on SABC1, SABC2, SABC3, and ultimately on the channel 404. And those are some of the stories that particularly pain him on the lives that South Africans still live in the Eastern Cape, apart from just hearing reports of government officials, which are at times not a true reflection of what is happening on the ground. For instance, if you look at an AG report looks at how monies are being spent. It doesn't look at the quality of life that South Africans are currently living, and those are some of the discrepancies that are there within these reports. As much as the AG report is important, but politicians tend to pride themselves on clean audits, yet they don't pride themselves on how actually they've elevated the lives of those who are impoverished and marginalized.
All right, I've got to thank you for that. That's SABC News senior politics reporter Samgele Masego reporting there on the visit. Let's call it not a visit. A president cannot visit any part of this country. It's not a visit, but it's oversight, I suppose. Oversight, undertaking, and that exercise and oversight in as far as service delivery is concerned. And this time it was in the Eastern Cape. The president there remarking on service delivery challenges as well as progress that has been made. Hopefully, out of all of this, because it is a roadshow, this is the third or the fourth province? The fourth province that has had this kind of oversight exercise. Hopefully, out of this, some fires are lit under the feet of those who are tasked with delivering basic services in those provinces.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Good morning to you, Zai. Hey, 1995 is far. 1995 is like many moons ago when Orlando Pirates were first adorned with the first star on their shirt. They are hoping the second will be added 30 years later.
30 years later, the ghosts are restless and they are hungry for silverware. So yeah, we're hoping that they're going to get this one in the bag. So just one step. They've got a dangerous Pyramids outfit that stands between them in this CAF Champions League final. The Egyptian side may be new at this stage, but they're top of their domestic league and boast a red-hot Fiston Mayele up front. Now the Buccaneers, they've been unbeaten en route to the semi-finals, but they'll need to bring their A-game on Saturday evening at Orlando Stadium, with Sundowns also facing Al Ahly in Pretoria earlier that day. It's a blockbuster weekend for South African football fans. Now we get a reaction from the boss of Arsenal, Mikel Arteta, as his side reached their Champions League semi-final with a 2-1 win at the Bernabeu to seal a historic 5-1 aggregate victory over the holders, Real Madrid.
It's incredible, but as well, big credit to them. You know, it was my first time as a coach in that dugout, and today I realized after 3 minutes that in this stadium, anything is possible. I mean, they are specialists of creating such a chaos, such a belief, and very difficult to understand really what's going on in the game and have certain certainty about how we control it. But I think the players showed a lot of maturity.
Another match saw Inter Milan. They drew 2-2 with Bayern Munich to set up a Champions League semi-final against Barcelona. And the Tottenham Hotspur team, they get set ahead of a defining night in the UEFA Europa League. They host Eintracht Frankfurt in the first leg. Pressure has been mounting on the Spurs head coach Ange Postecoglou.
Yeah, look, it's a blow, but it's consistent with everything else that's happened this year. So it's just another challenge for us to overcome. Unfortunate for him. He tried really hard. Like I said, the reason we left him out on the weekend was to try and give him time to recover, because he's been sort of struggling with this foot thing for a couple of weeks now. So, but in the end, he couldn't make it, and we've just got to sort of, as I said, we've had these challenges all year. It's just another one we just need to overcome.
In the meantime, Newcastle soared into third in the Premier League with a 5-0 thrashing of Crystal Palace. And finally, cricket. The Director of Cricket South Africa, Enoch Nkwe, has highlighted the urgency behind their ongoing search to find a replacement for the Proteas white ball coach following Rob Walter's departure. Some would argue the logical choice would be the red ball coach, Shukri Conrad, but Nkwe outlines considerations have to be made.
Yeah, look, it is something that we're looking at the current structure, the impact of it, and the areas that, maybe there were some challenges. So it is still under review, and hence probably in the next sort of 2 weeks, we'll be in a stronger position to say, okay, this is the way forward, and this is going to be the coach. Whether we stick with the two structures or we come back to a single structure, that is something that we need to decide on, and we want to make sure that by end of April, going into the first week of May, that we're in a position to commit.
More sport coming up here on the Morning Brief at the top of the hour. I'm Zai Khan.
Good morning, I'm Anne Musa. In the headlines, Justice and Constitutional Development Minister Mamoloko Kupai says the dismissal of 54 officials from her department reflects a commitment to good governance. The dismissals are for offences including fraud and corruption. The Northwest Education Department says it will investigate how a primary school in Mahikeng handled an incident in which an 8-year-old learner died and a 10-year-old sister was admitted to hospital. And head of the U.S. Federal Reserve says President Donald Trump's tariffs are likely to put at risk the bank's goals of controlling both inflation and unemployment. I'll have details on these and other stories at 8.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Being already busy on the M1 going up through Hammanskraal into the Carousel Plaza area. It is going to be a busy run through towards Polokwane today, tonight, and another crack tomorrow as well. Please take road safety very, very safely and seriously on that high volume route. Joburg side this morning, bit of pressure on the N3 North from Ilanz up towards Giluli's. Interchange, a crash on the N17 for motorists coming in from Brackpound and Springs just by Wits Rifles Road on your way through to Joburg. So that's quite slow. Truck overturning between Dustville and Villiers. The N3 on a high volume day today is backlogging quite heavily into that. It's likely to be a delay for some time this morning. It needs to be recovered. At this stage, you're just passing sort of half on the dirt lane and half on the tarmac, so sort of one vehicle at a time getting past there. Lengthy delays going inland from Pietermaritzburg to Hilton. There's a single lane open, top of Town Hill area. Durban's N2 fairly jam-packed this morning from the M7, making your way up through the Westwood Mall construction area. Cape Town roadworks N7 south on Jake Scoville still there, just south of Four Tracker Road, causing delays. And a crash on the M5 northbound before you get to the Ottery exit, just causing a backlog for those that are coming up from Grassy Park and Retreat Side. Still very busy out of Mitchell's Plain. Not only the roadworks towards Samora Michelle, but also a crash. So the M7 and the R300 route still heavily jammed up. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide. Leading the conversation. The business update on SAFM.
Let's turn to Ntauleng Lechela once again. Good morning to you, Ntauleng. Tell me about Google and the claims that they are making about the Competition Commission and is this about the market inquiry into the digital services provision?
That's correct, Thulas, and the firm is pushing back against the Competition Commission's recommendations that it pay local media houses up to 500 million rands annually for allegedly disrupting the market. Now, the tech giant argues that this proposal would restrict online news consumers' freedom of choice. According to Google's Charles Murito, the Commission's recommendations pose a threat to how South Africans access and consume information online. The Commission's inquiry initiated in October 2023 aimed to assess the impact of digital platforms like Google on the media industry. The proposed remedies include removing search biases in favor of foreign media and promoting local content. But Google contends that prioritizing certain content based on regulatory mandates rather than relevance of user interest would undermine the user experience. Now, Marito emphasized that the proposed regulations would deny South African users the same access to information enjoyed by users elsewhere. And Google's stance is consistent with its previous responses to regulatory pressures in other countries, including its decision to block news content in Canada and California to avoid paying media companies.
And then in pharmaceuticals, Ndauling, tell me about Clicks and them delivering strong half-year performance.
Now, the group's private label products really giving it a boost. These products, which include brands such as Payless, Safeway, and Made for Baby, contributed nearly 5 billion rands to the company's overall half-year sales. The growth is attributed to the value, quality, and local production of these products. Click says its private label sales increased by 10%, accounting for 31.4% of front shop sales. Now, Click's CEO Bettina Engelbrecht noted that the company's private label products have established strong market positions in various categories, outperforming big name competitors. Now, beyond the local market, Click says it has been approached by potential international partners interested in its private label portfolio, and the company is considering opportunities to expand into export markets. Looking at Click's overall results, turnover jumped 6% and earnings grew 13.2% in the interim period, driven of course by market share gains in the health and beauty segments, stronger private label performance, and better margins.
Dowling, give us another roundup of market activity here at home and elsewhere in the world, please.
Right, kicking things off in Asia, stocks mostly in the green, with tech counters on that front making the biggest gains, and that filtering through to the Hong Kong Hang Seng, which is trading 1.2% higher. Over in Wall Street, futures edging into positive territory. Sentiment, however, still downbeat after Fed Chair Jerome Powell cautioned that the ongoing trade tensions could challenge the central bank's goals of controlling inflation and spurring growth. Then coming back home, trade quite choppy in yesterday's session, with the JSE All Share paring gains, closing 0.2% higher. Meanwhile, in currency markets, the rand has been relatively stable, benefiting from a weaker dollar. It's sitting at 18.87 to the greenback this hour.
All right, thank you for that. That's Ndauling Lechela with the second update of the morning. She'll be back with more insights for you after 8:30, during which update she will also give you a sense of the kind of day you can expect in as far as the markets go on this Thursday.
Football intelligence will be tested between the students, University of Johannesburg and Tshwane University of Technology. They are both eager to go an extra mile for victory. This is the Hollywood Bet Super League. Witness the Varsity Derby, UJ Ladies versus TUT Ladies, on Sunday 20 April at 11:30 a.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
You wouldn't want to pay more than you need to for electricity, so why overpay for car insurance? Switch to Outsurance and you could save big every month. Zandile, a 36-year-old woman, is a real Outsurance client who saves a mind-blowing 918 rand a month on her 2024 Cherry Tiggo 1.5 litre. Isn't it time you got the real deal? Don't pay more. Switch and save today. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. With Outsurance, you always get something out. A licensed insurer and FSP, T's and C's online.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
Yeah, let me hear from you. Let me start with Chris in Pietermaritzburg. Good morning to you, Chris. You want to weigh in on the president's oversight in the Eastern Cape?
Yes. See, one of the biggest problems with this oversight is that it seems to forget that it follows on the Scopa visit to some of the projects there, and it ignores it. Another thing that is ignored is that the biggest problem of the Eastern Cape is governance, poor leadership, perpetual corruption, and impunity. And I didn't, in all the snippets, hear the president speaking about that. And until and unless he addresses it, all the so-called projects that he's speaking about will never come to fruition, because before a project comes, people are already thinking, what's in it for myself?
Yeah.
And that is when we are really going to see a president who is taking things seriously and really have the power that he is given by the Constitution to act in the best interest of the people of South Africa.
What's your thinking, Chris, around how that issue of governance can be brought front and center and addressed decisively?
I believe that besides just Bantu Olumisa and the Premier, quite a number of people have brought up evidence. He just needs to read the papers that are in front of him and act decisively on those reports that are there.
Right.
Ask the report from the Scopa chairperson, what they found out now on the project there, and act on those. Now, just recently, a month ago.
Yeah, I remember that visit. All right, Chris, thank you. Don't be a stranger now. That's Chris in Pietermaritzburg, who hasn't called in a while, and I'm calling him out. Eddie in Odendalsrus, good morning to you. You want to also talk about this oversight in the Eastern Cape?
Yes, thank you very much, my brother, and your team as well. People in the Eastern Cape have been failed for many years. And you also check how much money is returned to the fiscal, to the national government.
Yeah.
Especially from these, poor provinces. Just check how much is returned to the national fiscal. Whereas people are struggling in those provinces.
Yeah.
The last point is that, the report of the AG, it must be studied, and we must ask this question: how many people have been held accountable in terms of those who have been jailed because of misuse of money?
Yeah.
People must start now rejecting any party that deploys people that are not serving them. They must start including the very same, the ANC.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for that, Eddie. Also echoing the sentiments of Chris before him about the need for this to not appear to be happening in a vacuum. There's already been work that has been done around governance in the Eastern Cape and in other parts of the country as well. And the suggestion there being that the president, whenever he undertakes these oversight exercises, should also take on board what other bodies such as Scopa have found previously, as well as Eddie there talking about the underspend. That's a perpetual issue, isn't it? Underspending and the return of funds meant for development being returned to national treasury because there's a failure to spend them the way that they're supposed to be spent.
Good morning, Thulasizwe. I would like to talk about the visit of the president to the Eastern Cape. For me personally, this visit or his visit means nothing, because if his visit hasn't changed the lives of Eastern Cape people, it absolutely means nothing, because his visit there must have a purpose, not just to talk to those in power.
Yeah. And that's really the cry, isn't it? That after this visit, we should see actual plans being implemented, concrete plans being implemented. Let me hear someone else also on this matter.
Morning, Thulas. In the SAFM team, I live here in Queenstown, or Komani, and I actually think the president needs to come to majority of these small towns, not just PE. He should actually have an envoy. He should actually come to Queenstown and actually see the nonsense that we are experiencing here, and Mthatha and all the other places.
Yeah, thank you for that. I'm interested in your use of the word. He needs to have an envoy. Of course, there's that context from Cebisi Jonas being appointed envoy, and I'm not making light of your comment, but I am saying that there are already envoys of government in the Eastern Cape, and isn't it an indictment that a citizen would feel that another envoy would be needed to deal specifically with those issues in that province when you already have the arms and hands of government at provincial level, at local government level, that should be the envoys of national government, of provincial government, in ensuring that the lives of people are changed for the better. In that sense, that sometimes the president is taken to the capital city of a province and in the urban centers and doesn't really get to experience the rot and decay in the smaller towns. Nhlanhla in KwaZulu-Natal, good morning to you. You want to talk about political accountability this morning?
Yes, my brother. Thank you for taking my call. Good morning. My brother, the reason why I'm talking about accountability, political accountability, is because Minister of Labour, in fact, the Department of Labour has been refusing to come on radio, to come to account of it. And according to Richard Collins, he said on South African media policy debates of 1990, accountability is required to give citizens control over an important source of information which they require to make informed political choices. Political accountability presumes accountability to an elected authority. That's establishing a relationship of political accountability between a broadcaster and citizen could most easily be conceived by making broadcasting the responsibility of an elected government. My brother, I'm not going to read the whole thing. ANC was involved when media policy debate was formulated. They even produced a media charter. PAC, COSATU, even EPA, politicians, when they need to come in account, they're not doing us a favor. It's our constitutional right. Section 32, we need access of information.
Nice. Nhlanhla, you're one of the callers that call in frequently, and I really appreciate your engagements every morning. Tell me a bit more, and I'm digressing a bit. Tell me a bit more about your passion for the Constitution. It's never far from you. You cite it quite frequently to buttress the points that you are making. What's that passion born out of?
My brother.
Nhlanhla? Oh man, I hate it when that happens. Just as it was getting started. But we'll ask him the question in future. I'm intrigued. I'm always fascinated to hear from Nhlanhla. I believe that we seem to have lost the connection to Nhlanhla there. So let me move on and take one or two of your voice notes. I will be sure. I've had this question in my mind. If you listen to the show, you will have heard Nhlanhla from time to time. He cites the Constitution time and again to make his point, and you can tell there's a particular passion there that's deep within him whenever he makes his points. Let me take this voice note that's paying tribute to Don Mlangeni.
Morning, Thulasizwe. This is from Deng. My condolences to the family and colleagues of Dr. Don Mlangeni now. He was multilingual. He acted in so many stories. And there's a particular one that is called The Throne. He was there, and he could speak Setswana fluently. He could speak Sesotho fluently, Zulu, Ndebele. He was so multilingual and talented. Second issue is there's no accountability in government. People will do whatever they want, and they will be protected by the unions. It's high time that as a country, if government employees act outside of the regulations, they should be punished. We cannot allow a situation where people will just waste public funds.
Thank you for that. I mean, the versatility of the late Don Mlangeni, right? From comedy, as you say, Lakasha in Good is nice. But I'm just thinking something that will truly reveal my age. Wasn't he in Lesilo Rula? I may be getting it wrong, but if you're of a certain age, you'll set me right. But I mean, there have been so many roles that span comedy, drama, serious drama, police roles, any role that you can imagine, he could pull it off. Let me take one more voice note, and this one has to do with the issue of spaza shops. We had the conversation earlier on about whether or not anything has changed since the registration campaign to get spaza shops registered.
When it comes to spasms and children dying from the food poisoning, South Africa is leaderless. Really, we do not have leaders. South Africa, we are on our own. And if we don't stand up and do something for ourselves, South Africa will be gone. Our children will be dying. And nothing better will be done. Because our president acts as fast as a snail. He's a man of process and system that takes, people are dying in the process. And what do? Really, South Africa, we need someone who will provide leadership, just like Botswana, Rwanda. You know, we need real leaders. People who are proactive, not reactive. Because now, South Africa is not, leadership is not reactive. Because after many times, nothing has been done as yet. Illegal spasms are still operating. So South Africans, we have to take up and say this is our country, this is our only place, and do something about it. Gore.
Yeah, Gore, thank you for that. Quite disheartening that, this was the one process that we were told. The diagnosis was that part of the reason why there's a proliferation of these incidents where poisons, toxins are introduced into the food value chain at spaza shops is because they are unregulated, they're not registered, etc. Therefore, there was this massive undertaking that said register so that we can control all of that and hold you accountable. It's quite disheartening that the reading, at least from people, including yourself, is that nothing has changed since then by way of consequence management for those spaza shops and food handlers who did not come forward to register and regularize their operations. That makes you wonder, what was the point then? What was the point of it all?
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Looking okay on the run through to Polokwane this morning. Getting out of Gauteng, there were some delays earlier around Carousel Plaza. That may well have been related to sort of shift changes or something like that, but it's moving okay. Around about 2 o'clock this afternoon is when we'll just see traffic building up on the N1 around Pretoria, and that'll be the volume that's going up towards Pumalani and then through towards Polokwane. Of course, a big weekend for ZCC pilgrims. They count their numbers in the millions that attend Moria this weekend, and it's a sort of resumption of pre-COVID type service level. So it is going to be a busy run, not only up the N1, but from all points across the country out towards Moria. R21 queuing into the roadworks down by Pomona Road. If you're onto the airport, don't forget to put some extra time on. The N17 crash at Wits Rifles this morning, coming in from Boksburg, in from sort of Brakpan Springs direction, if you like, towards Joburg. It's very slow into that. Truck overturning between Dustville and Villiers. So the N3 on your way to Durban, reasonably higher volumes this morning than normal for a Thursday morning. And if you're moving out of Pietermaritzburg towards Hilton and Howick, there's just one lane open in some roadworks up by Town Hill, the top of Town Hill, up by Peter Brown. So there's a really sizable backlog going that way this morning. Cape Town, the N2 inbound looking slow from about Robert Sobukwe through to Hospital Bend. The N7 North queuing up passing Langa. The earlier crash on the M5 down by Ottery has cleared up, and that traffic is a little bit slow but starting to move better. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
Have you recently migrated to the new TV licenses payment website? Make sure your account stays active by registering again or resetting your password. Don't miss out on all the fantastic new features our brand new website offers. Get registered today and stay connected with us. With the new website, get your payments done quickly and hassle-free with a wide range of services. So make sure you register to take advantage of all the great client features. Visit www.tvlic.co.za today. TV licenses, do it for the things that matter.
Dango, for the love of the game and Mzansi for sure. Soccer Zone has relocated to a new slot, 9 p.m. live every Monday on SABC 1. Mzansi Africa.
Fascinating goals.
The unbelievable saves.
From Africa Borwa to the entire African continent to the Bundesliga and the Premier League.
High-level reviews of crucial match scenarios by the legendary Mr. F.
Top-class analysis, latest news about the beautiful game.
And Momish of the Week.
SABC Sport Football Weekend ends on Mondays at 9 p.m. on Soccer Zone.
Live on SABC 1. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The Spanish Princess series continues the story of Queen Catherine and Henry VIII. Catherine's struggle to produce an heir places her marriage and position in the court at risk, and she's haunted by her choices from the past. Despite proving herself a politician, a diplomat, and a national inspiration, and even a military commander, Catherine must battle to save her love with the king and to preserve the peace and prosperity of their reign. The Spanish Princess Season 2 airs Saturdays at 9:30 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
All right, before I move on, just to round off on that issue we were talking about Don Mlangeni. I've been set straight. My memory is starting to fail me. I'm of a certain age. He wasn't the lead actor in Lisilo Rula. It was someone else, but he was in dramas like Hlala Kwabafile. All right, let me move on to this now. As the 2025 Easter weekend approaches, the country faces the grim reality that the country's roads have become increasingly dangerous, with a sharp rise in fatalities recorded in 2024. In light of this, the emergency response organization, Crisis on Call, is issuing a nationwide call for vigilance, preparedness, and responsible road behavior during one of the busiest and deadliest travel periods of the year. Let's welcome now Ruan Vermaak, who is Communications Manager at Crisis on Call. Ruan, good morning, and thank you for your time. 335 people lost their lives during the Easter period in 2024, and that was a marked increase from the year before. And you've made the point that these are not just numbers. How do we deal responsibly with driving ahead of this weekend in a manner that takes into account that reality that these are not just numbers?
Good morning. So we are looking at 32.9% higher increase in fatalities than the year 2023, which gives KwaZulu-Natal a 22% higher rate and Gauteng a 20.8% recorded higher rate in crash fatalities. So definitely it is a call to all road users to make sure that their cars are roadworthy, the licenses hasn't expired, and the vehicle is in a roadworthy working condition. This is something Crisis on Call really wants to put out in the media to make sure that everyone that is traveling this Easter weekend to be safe, vigilant on the road, and make sure that they end up in their vacation or holiday destination safe and in one piece.
Ruan, is it your sense that the route you take, as well as the time during which you travel, are key factors that add to, you've been talking about the pre-trip elements of being proactive about your safety, but what about on the day and at the hour of travel? Does the route that you choose and the time of travel factor in as far as enhancing your safety on the road?
Most definitely. It is very important to plan your route to make sure that you have everything planned out, that your closest family know exactly what time you're going to leave. It's important to do this. And so on the specific day, it is very important to also know your surroundings, to know your final destination, when you're going to stop, take a rest, stretch some legs, especially when you have children in the car as well. So this is something that is really, really important, especially when it comes to the Easter weekend, when we sit with statistics like this that is so high in fatalities. It's very important to plan this route to make sure that you are safe while you are traveling.
And being at the forefront of emergency response, Ruan, tell me about some of the factors that you see frequently that play a role in crashes.
Definitely, with a statistic rate of 94.6% in fatal crashes caused by human factors, recklessness, fatigue, alcohol, and distractions is really alarming statistic because people are tending to drive while they drive. They are texting and driving. Some people drink and drive. Other people are driving recklessly. So this is something that can lead to more motor vehicle accidents while people are driving to their holiday destination. So yes, most definitely, it is something that we as first responders and crisis on call and all our service providers actually urges the people not to text and drive. Rather, when you are tired, rather rest, rather sleep over. Don't try to push through and drive all the way from Johannesburg to Cape Town, for instance, without resting. It is very important to rest. It's very important to sleep over. It's very important to make sure that you can use a product called with Crisis on Call when you are a member of Crisis on Call, that is the trip monitoring services that can actually contact you on the hour, every hour while you are driving on your car Bluetooth kit to make sure that you are actually safe. And if something happens between 2 points, we can know where to start looking for you. So this will also give ease of mind for your family, everyone in the car, and your people that you're going to meet at your final destination.
All right, I've got to thank you for your time and those insights and those safety tips there from Ruan Vermaak, who is Communications Manager at Crisis on Call. You heard it from Ruan there, folks. It's very important to be proactive prior to your trip, but also planning your route and time of travel, as well as those other safety tips that Ruan was sharing. Let's be safe out there on the roads. Let's check in now with N. Musa with the latest news.
In our top stories, Justice Department cracks down on corruption and misconduct, and 2 councillors to appear in court over corruption charges. Good morning. The Justice and Constitutional Development Minister, Mamoloko Kubai, says the dismissal of 54 officials from her department reflects a commitment to good governance. The dismissals are for offences including fraud and corruption. Kubai has warned she will not tolerate misconduct in her department.
We are making sure that we protect South Africans from those that are continuing to do wrong. Where you have theft, where you have corruption, you have fraud, it's zero tolerance, it will be dismissal. I mean, a person goes to court to ask for the maintenance of their children who might be ill, who might be going to school and all that. And then an official of the department goes and puts a different account where the money is redirected. That is unforgivable. And that's why we've taken the stance that we will continue to dismiss them.
2 arrested eMalahleni municipal councillors are expected to appear in the local magistrates' court in Mpumalanga today. The 2, who are members of a mayoral committee, are facing corruption-related charges. They were arrested at the Witbank Dam after allegedly receiving a 20,000 rand bribe in exchange for extending a lease agreement. Provincial Hawk spokesperson Maguseni Nkosi says the amount is the second payment after the councillors allegedly received 40,000 rand in February. The North West Education Department says it will investigate how a primary school in Mahikeng handled an incident in which an 8-year-old learner died and a 10-year-old sister was admitted to hospital. It's alleged the G.J. Podile primary school learners ate snacks they bought from a vendor in Ramusadi village. They apparently complained of stomach cramps while at school. The older girl is still in the intensive care unit in hospital. Speaking anonymously, this family member says they are struggling to come to terms with the tragedy.
We feel somebody must be held accountable. If indeed the school got negligent and they did not take their part to help the child in their care, obviously they must be held accountable. And the other thing, if this death is because of the snacks that the children consumed, bought along the road as they go to the school, we also want authorities to trace that so that most of our children are going to be saved.
KwaZulu-Natal Transport and Human Settlements MEC Siboniso Duma says his department will ensure there's police visibility in the province, especially during the Easter long weekend. The province is expected to experience inclement weather throughout the weekend. It will also see an influx of holiday makers. Duma, who visited rain-affected areas, has urged residents in low-lying areas and road users to take heed of weather warnings. He also says there will be heavy police visibility in the province.
In the province of KwaZulu-Natal, from today onwards, we will be having almost 1,500 vehicles a kilometer an hour. So it will tell you that we must be extra cautious. And this morning I'll also go to Moran Hill Toll Plaza just to ensure that there is a proper roadblock and we monitor all the issues. There is an improvement, I must say, because in the south of eThekwini we registered almost 75 mils of rain, but at least there are no casualties.
Further afield, and finally, head of the U.S. Federal Reserve says President Donald Trump's tariffs are likely to put at risk the bank's goals of controlling both inflation and unemployment. Central Bank Chairperson Jerome Powell says the levies are higher than estimated. He says they will probably lead to higher prices and diminished growth. California has filed a lawsuit to seek to block Trump's sweeping tariffs. Its governor is Gavin Newsom.
The manufacturing footprint in this state is disproportionately impacted by the tariffs, disproportionate to any other state in the nation. Of course, we talk about the fifth largest economy in the world. Let's put that in perspective. We're 14% of the U.S. GDP. That is 50% higher than the next state. No other state will be more impacted by the impacts of this uncertainty because of these tariffs.
Recapping the top story, the Justice and Constitutional Development Minister Mamoloko Kubai says the dismissal of 54 officials from her department reflects a commitment to good governance. For SFM News, I am Anne Musa.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Here's one to avoid the M2 going into Joburg this morning, coming off the N3. You're going to sit in some very heavy traffic down towards sort of Cleveland and on to Denver. That's the M2, Joburg bound. The queue starts right back on the sort of N3 highway off-ramp. So maybe if you're going north, come off at Galulis. If you're coming south, come off at Galulis as well. Work in through sort of Eastgate. That looks a better option. At this stage, crash on the N17 at Wits Rifle. Still slowing traffic arriving into that from the Boksburg side towards Joburg. N1 both ways to William Mandela. That's quite heavy. There's some real pressure just coming down from Ravonia and coming up from Rambo this morning into that William Mandela off-ramp at four ways. N1 south, a crash at Boerta Avenue, heavy from the R21 if you're leaving Pretoria. Queues on the N14 between Lanseria and Diepsloot. That is a crash heading up towards Pretoria, causing delays there. Durban side, not too bad this morning. The N2's busy, just running from the M7 through Westwood Mall. Don't forget the big roadworks underway north of Pietermaritzburg towards Hilton. One lane open, very heavy. There's also some delays before you get there. N3 from Market Road going up towards Ortman Road. Looks like a problem on that side of the Pietermaritzburg bypass. Then you pop out the other side and you hit those heavy delays. And Cape Town, N1 inbound easing, but still busy to Cooper. Get a change. And Tiddy Mayer is quite heavy this morning. You'll get some delays going that way off the N1 onto Mike Pina heading south past the hospital into Tiddy Mayer Boulevard, all backed up. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
It's a very good morning to you. In your SFM sports headlines, the Betway Premiership returns this weekend as Richards Bay and Cape Town City face off in the relegation zone battle. We've also got Kaizer Chiefs looking for momentum against Chippa United. And rugby, the Springbok women's skipper Nosundaliso Boy is set for a milestone 50th match against Spain. We'll bring you the details just before 8:30.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
8 minutes after 8 on this Thursday, we are into the third hour of the morning brief. Good morning, I'm Thulasizwe Simelane. The full buffet of the conversation is being served this morning, and we've been talking quite extensively about President Ramaphosa's oversight in the Eastern Cape, service delivery oversight and those engagements, and whether or not they will lead to practical changes and implementable plans being implemented that start to turn the wheel in as far as service delivery is concerned. But there's just one other conversation that I'm hoping you can engage with a bit more. I see your engagements with all the other issues, but I'm wondering what you made of the conversation we had with Lieutenant General Shadrach Sibia just before 7 a.m. that has to do with the shortage of detectives within the South African Police Service. That's a key cog in the machinery of the South African Police Service, isn't it? Because it's about solving crimes. And there was talk about 1.9 million dockets. Lieutenant General Sibia saying that that's not, they're not lying there gathering dust and not being investigated, but they are part of the backlog that is being dealt with as and when now they are boosting and bolstering the capacity, which stands, according to the numbers that he gave this morning, at 24,000 detectives across the country. That's a slight increase from where it was at the last reporting in August last year of 22,000, but it's a far cry from where it was many years ago, 27,000 detectives. So the aim is for no detective to be dealing with 100, 200 or 300 dockets at any given time. That's where the challenge is at. I would like to hear from you what you make of that. Just the capacity being added. Do you have confidence that this issue can be overcome? That and other issues, I'm open to hearing from you, and I'll be taking your calls over the next few minutes. The number to dial is 086 000 2032. Your WhatsApp voice notes, lots of them coming in. I see them and I'll take them, and they are on 061 410 4107. This is SAFM. We are leading the conversations that move us. The third hour of the Thursday edition of the Morning Brief starts now.
From Engutu to Durban, twins born with one dream, Maskandi greatness, millions, fame and family. Will money tear them apart or unite them? Brand new telenovela, Amalanga Wafani, starts April 2025. Weekdays at 6:30 on SABC 1.
Football intelligence will be tested between the students, University of Johannesburg and Tshwane University of Technology. They are both eager to go an extra mile for victory. This is the Hollywood Bet Super League. Witness the Varsity Derby, UJ Ladies versus TUT Ladies on Sunday 20 April at 11:30 a.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Call Thulasizwe now. 086 000 2032.
Some voice notes before I get to the calls.
When it comes to spasas and children dying from the food poisoning, South Africa is leaderless. Really, we do not have leaders. South Africa, we are on our own. And if we don't stand up and do something for ourselves, South Africa will be gone. Our children will be dying. And nothing better will be done. Because our president acts as fast as a snail. He's a man of process and system that takes, people are dying in the process.
Yeah, I believe we played that a bit earlier on. Let me take this one that has to do with the inquest into the death of Inkosi Albert Luthuli.
Good morning, Thulas. Vincent Rismat here, immigrant. Thulas, I think sometimes it is better to let sleeping dogs lie. The inquest into the death of Chief Luthuli and Griffith Mcenge might reopen wounds for the family. I really acknowledge that the truth has to be revealed. But in this case, sometimes it is better to let the things rest. Thank you, Vincent here, Midrand.
I hear you, Vincent. The challenge, though, Vincent, is that the family itself has been saying for years that they don't buy that official story, as have many families, whose loved ones died during the years of apartheid, that they just didn't believe and didn't buy that story, that there was the official story of how and why their loved ones died. So in the case of Inkosi Albert Luthuli, the family has been saying that this story, that there was a train accident that led to his death, they've just not bought that story. Let me take this one that has to do with Peter Groenewald and the leadership at Correctional Services.
Yeah, Thulas, my friend, how are you? Thulas, tell me something. Why is Dr. Grunewald of Correctional Service not being scrutinized? It's almost 10 months now that he's been in that role, but he has not done anything significantly that was different from what Ronald Lamola has done. Why is he not being scrutinized? Is it because he is the boss?
Yeah, thank you for raising that. I'm not sure if he hasn't done anything of significance. I remember in the first few months, much talk was about his approach to parole, that his approach to, eligibility for parole was going to be radically different, and he was going to be quite stricter. And I know that he's been dealing with the issue of contraband, the smuggling of items into correctional services. But I agree with you. We should invite him to the show, Peter Grunewald, to speak to us about update on some of these issues that have been, actively that we've been monitoring actively, that are of concern to many South Africans. It would be nice to have a catch up and find out how far he has gone in changing some of the dynamics that have been of concern within correctional services. Let me take a call from Solomon in KwaZulu-Natal. Good morning to you, Solomon.
And good morning to your listeners.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, you see, active citizenry does not only entail generating complaints in perpetuity. It is also incumbent upon the citizens to ensure that at least they meet the government at a sweat level, at a sweat equity level. I'm saying this because the government is ready at itself a developmental state which should continue to build capacity to assist those who have been disadvantaged. Another point is that our society seems to be based on consumerism. We seem to consume more goods without trying to move towards producing what we consume. We need to entrench and engender an entrepreneurialism kind of culture. I'm saying this because there is a spaza shops which is worth almost 200 billion in terms of market share. Still, that market is not tapped by the local communities. Why? Because we are expecting to receive services, support. Of course, it is the duty of government to do so. Yeah. But I think we need to up the ante as the local communities to say, how can we participate meaningfully, trade amongst ourselves, support our own business initiatives as opposed to self-hate, which lead us not to support each other.
Does it feel to you, Solomon, that this needs to be a movement that is actively orchestrated and championed and led by someone, that it just kind of needs something apolitical, but that people can identify with and follow that championing?
You are quite correct. We should stop on cease being spectators. Yeah. Because if it is championed by government, it will continue to be a kind of a service which is given to an unexpecting and careless kind of society. Yeah. We need to take this initiative up upon ourselves. These individuals, foreign nationals who are controlling this market, they came here destitute. They were working, selling their merchandise long distances. Yeah. Today they are somewhere in terms of the ladder.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you. You've gotten us thinking. That is Solomon in KwaZulu-Natal. They're talking about active citizenry, not just sitting and complaining about the problems, but actually taking some kind of initiative and almost like a campaign that he's talking about. Thank you for that. We will take a few more of your calls a bit later on, as well as your voice notes.
Spar Rewards brings you 5 days of even more now on, with up to 50% off. Get 5 kg Spar IQF chicken, mixed portions for $169.99 and save 67 Rand, or 1.5 litre Coca-Cola regular. Buy 2 for 30 Rand and save 12 Rand. Price is valid from 17 to 21 April while stocks last. Spar Rewards. Sign up for more.
It's the catch of the season as our 3 madcap fishing fanatics are back, embarking on even a more exciting adventures across the globe. Get ready for bigger fish, bigger laughs, and more extreme destinations in a series packed with adrenaline-fueled fishing antics and plenty of friendly rivalry. Fishing Impossible Season 2, Fridays at 10 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
The Blue Diamonds want to shine all the way from kickoff to the final whistle, while the Rockets plan to rock up with a strong winning mentality. This is the Hollywood Bet Super League. Experience the exciting battle between JVWFC and TS Galaxy Queens on Sunday 20 April at 2:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
Big stories of the day. Hashtag the morning brief.
20 minutes after 8. Let's focus on an agency that we hardly ever talk about, the Films and Publications Board. As online threats evolve and deepen, the Films and Publications Board, FPB, has announced its intention to gain access to the dark web to combat illegal digital activities, in particular child sexual abuse material, CSAM. In a parliamentary briefing this week, the FPB outlined the alarming scale of harmful online content and the urgent need for stronger regulation, better digital education, and more robust enforcement to protect South African children and vulnerable users from online exploitation. Let's welcome Ephraim Tlago, who is Acting Chief Executive Officer of the Films and Publications Board. Good morning to you, and thank you for your time. We'll talk in a moment about the dark web and what it is you are seeking to do in that space. But before we get there, just give me a sense of the scale of the problem. I believe you've been monitoring content sites over a period of time, and you've got numbers that have come through between April and December 2024 that are quite concerning.
Good morning, Thulasizwe, and good morning to the listeners, and thanks again for having us. So indeed, yes, and just to provide context to Thulasizwe is that the Film and Publications Board, in line with the Act, the Films and Publications Act, is mandated to regulate the production, creation, possession, and the distribution of films, games. So this is what then we're referring to an umbrella. So then in that, core to that mandate is the protection of children against prohibited and harmful content. And just like you said, one of the key issues that we're picking up is the child sexual abuse material is one of the issues that we are currently dealing with, and we're working very closely with law enforcement agencies in then dealing with that. The numbers that you are referring to in this last financial year, we were analyzing around over 180,000 materials, where in some of those materials, indeed, we did confirm that there were child sexual abuse material. So we are saying we really need to sort of up our gear. Rather than us being reactive and then looking at cases that are being referred to us, we need to then come up with measures for us to be able to counter and for us to be sort of a much more agile and then a proactive regulator.
Is it your sense from the numbers and from what I can see, 178, 411 sites that you analyzed, some 7,461 instances of child sexual abuse material found. Is it your sense that the problem is growing?
The problem is really growing, and we are seeing this with the advancements of sort of technologies, artificial intelligence also making it a little bit difficult, and kids having access to devices, so devices connected to the internet. So what we are saying is that the child with a 9-year-old or a 10-year-old child with a device that's connected to the internet, that child now has millions and millions of strangers within the internet, and that child, and one thing that we are seeing, Thulasizwe, is that self-generated content. For example, kids are taking videos of themselves, they are taking images of themselves, and these images then perpetrators are getting sort of hold of those.
Yeah, and this now talks to the other phenomenon that I'd like us to touch on, Ephraim, the non-consensual image sharing, what people would colloquially call revenge porn. That's where this comes in, right? The grooming of children, for example, that ends up with the child taking images of themselves and sharing with this person who then goes on to use it without their consent.
Yes, this is another issue. So over and above child sexual abuse material, which indeed is a criminal offense, and anyone found in offense of that can then be sort of prosecuted. But with non-consensual sharing of images, again, this is one of the prohibitions within the Films and Publications Act, where we are seeing, and like you're rightfully saying, we are commonly referring to it as revenge pornography. So people have their images and films taken, normally innocently so, but then other people then get hold of those, either because they were previously shared, and then there's extortion that is then coming in, or those sort of vengeance, those images and films are now shared within the internet. So we are then saying the FPB is here to assist, working very closely to law enforcement agencies, and with just ensuring that people are aware of online safety, how to protect themselves online, and how to report such cases to us and also with the law enforcement agencies.
So with that said, then what are you seeking to do within that space and that corner of the digital world that is known as the dark web? What is the dark web, and what are you seeking to do in that space to deal with this phenomena that you and I have been talking about?
So dark web, essentially, this is the part of the internet where it's not normally accessed by normal users. So this is where people are able to use encryption. This is where people are able to sort of hide their identity, hide their location. And then it's associated with illicit trading of all sorts of other things. But specifically for us, we're looking at this sharing of images, sharing of videos of children, either for non-consensual sharing of images or for child sexual abuse material. So we are realizing that for us to be agile and to be effective regulator, we need to empower ourselves with technological capabilities so that we can be on par with the industry we are regulating. Not only just technology, but also with the necessary skills for us to be able to counter or to interrupt the sort of the supply chain. And then Thulasizwe, this is why we're working very closely with realizing that this is not just our responsibility, but we need to partner with and collaborate with partners internationally. We are now part of the Global Online Safety Regulators Network. We are part of the InHope Network, which is a network of hotlines dealing with sort of combating child sexual abuse material. So we are realizing that this is one issue that's not just within our jurisdiction, but we need to partner with all our partners across the globe.
Has legislation kept apace with developments, Ephraim, in the sense of social media? It used to be you would be watching websites only and perhaps, traditional linear television. But now the social media, more platforms, but also even in the work that your team does, has it evolved in terms of how you carry out this monitoring and analysis?
So the legislation has evolved, but I must say, obviously, with technology advancing very fast, we are playing catch-up, and we all know the process for amendments of the Act to be done. There's a parliamentary process, public comments process, but we are doing our best. I mean, the Film and Publications Act was last amended in 2019, came into effect in 2022. There's also the Cyber Crimes Act, which then came in 2020. So there is legislation that is there, but obviously we are playing catch-up. But I think for me, the most important message is that we need to play our role. We need to be responsible, and hence we are saying, while we are amending legislations, looking at regulations, let's spread and then promote the online safety message so that people are aware what is it that they're doing. They need to be vigilant when they're interacting, especially in the online space.
All right, I've got to thank you for your time this morning. That's Ephraim Tlhako, who is Acting Chief Executive Officer of the Film and Publications Board.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Good morning to you once again, Zai. So we're at the business end of the Betway Premiership, right? And this is where now, I hate saying this, but the boys will be separated from the men.
The wheat from the chaff, yes, the boys from the men. And some of them are flirting with relegation so hard. I don't know what to say. This is a report that we might bring to you a little bit later on, but this Betway Premiership returning this weekend. Survival is the name of the game. Richards Bay and Cape Town City will lock horns in Umlazi tomorrow night. Both teams desperate to escape relegation with just 24 points apiece. On Saturday, Maruma Gallants, they'll aim to bounce back from cup disappointment. They'll take on the in-form Golden Arrows, while a Limpopo derby between Sekhukhune United and Polokwane City could shake it up at the top 8 standings. Chippa United are hosting Kaizer Chiefs in Gqeberha, where consistency is Amakhozi's Achilles heel. And on Sunday, it's Magesi FC defending their fortress in Seshego against TS Galaxy. Meanwhile, Orlando Pirates are one step away from their third CAF Champions League final, but standing in their way is a dangerous Pyramid FC outfit. The Egyptian side may be new at this stage, but they're top of their domestic league. The Buccaneers have been unbeaten en route to the semis, but they'll need to bring their A-game on Saturday evening at Orlando Stadium, with Sundowns also facing Al Ahly in Pretoria earlier that day. It's a blockbuster weekend for South African football fans. Let's go to rugby. The long-serving Springbok women's captain, Nolusindiso Boy, will become the first South African female to reach 50 test caps when they face Spain on Saturday. Boy, already South Africa's most capped women's player, will reach this significant and historic milestone 15 years after her debut against Kazakhstan. Here's the performance coach, Face the Brain.
Caps is important and experience is important, and the blend to bring the right new ones in, so we have that. But if you look at our captain, it's Cindy, it's just unreal, you know, what she's done. The amount of games that they play compared to men's rugby, you can almost double it. So if you can reach 50 in women's rugby, you deserve a statue somewhere in South Africa, really, as a ladies captain. And what she brought to the team is unreal.
We'll go to the Proteas senior batter, Rassie van der Dussen, candidly opening about his future prospects in the national jersey following his latest contract with Cricket South Africa. Van der Dussen alongside David Miller, they've entered into a hybrid contract with the national governing body for the 2025-26 season. Asked if his outlook on the future was a difficult conclusion, well, Van der Dussen says he does not intend to play until the age of 40.
No, not difficult at all. I'm a fairly realistic person in terms of I've always been. You can't play forever. I don't think my outset was ever to play till the age of 40 or so, like some of the guys do. For me, my ultimate goal and dream essentially was to represent my country and to play for the Proteas. So when that stops, I'm not sure if I'll continue playing leagues and that necessarily, but in this way, I can still add value to the team and to the country and to the organization. And if that means me teaching the guys everything that I've managed to learn in the 5-6 years that I've been part of the team and making their transition easier, then that's something I'm really looking forward to.
And that's a wrap of the Morning Brief Sport. We'll swing back with more sport around 12:30 with John Gericke. I'm Zai Khan.
Good morning, I'm Anne Musa. In the headlines, Gauteng Roads and Transport MEC Kiribone Diale-Tlabela will today visit the family of the latest person to die in taxi-related violence in Alberton Ekurhuleni. The woman was a taxi operator affiliated to the Katlehong People's Taxi Association. The Justice and Constitutional Development Minister, Mamoloko Kubai, says the dismissal of 54 officials from her department reflects a commitment to good governance. The dismissals are for offences including fraud and corruption. And US President Donald Trump has met with the Japanese delegation in Washington. The delegation is seeking a deal on tariffs. I'll have details on these and other stories at 9.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
A lot of traffic around the Ekurhuleni side this morning. Crash on the N17 at Wits Rifle, still holding traffic towards Joburg. There's a big crash at Cleveland on the M2. In fact, if you're coming out of Germiston, there's a police operation between Refinery Road and the M3. So that section of the M2 is heavy. You get past that and you stay in traffic all the way through Cleveland down towards Denver. If you're on the N3, just try an off-ramp perhaps at Galuli's and take the R24 in through the Broomer, Bez Valley area into Joburg. Avoid sort of jumping off the N3 onto the M2 because you'll sit on the ramps. You'll sit on the highway and the ramps just to get into the M2, so worth avoiding. And the N3 from Elon's Interchange all the way through to Kaluli stays absolutely jam-packed as well. Crash on the N14 before Diepsloot, collision on the M1 South before Buerta Avenue, and delays coming into that just south of the R21. N1 towards Polokwane still looks clear. It will be busy. 2 p.m. we think is about the start of the real big sort of peak in the volume. It'll stay busy all afternoon and late into the evening, probably right through the evening until tomorrow morning. Now, a couple of issues driving inland through Pietermaritzburg's crash at Ortman Road. That's heavy from sort of Market Road territories. You get very slowly up the Pietermaritzburg bypass. You emerge from that and you're back into another major queue moving up Town Hill into a single lane section just past Peter Brown. So lots of traffic going very slow on your way up towards Hilton and Howick. Cape Town crash on Malabongwe Drive at Dunoon's N7 bridge. That's causing a delay coming from the Durbanville side, from sort of Contimans, Cliff Hill, Basson side. Quite a backlog of traffic to get past that one. The highways, no incidents, but fairly busy, particularly the run into Hospital Bend on both the N2 and the M3. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide. Leading the conversation.
The business update on SAFM.
Good morning to you once again in Dowling. We start with a bit of bad news. This is not the kind of news we want. Business confidence has slipped in the month of March.
So morale took a knock last month, Thulas, with SACCI's Business Confidence Index dipping slightly to 123.5 points, down from February's 125.8 points, which was the highest level since March 2012. Now, despite this decline, there is some good news. The index remains near a more than decade high. Factors contributing to somewhat improved sentiment include tourism and lower inflation, which stood at 3.2% in February. But weaker imports, the rand's depreciation, and declines in JSE shares and manufacturing output dragged the index down. The South African Chamber of Commerce and Industry cautions against complacency, citing global uncertainty, potential trade disruptions, and tariff barriers. SACCI also expressed concerns about the delayed 2025-26 budget and proposed VAT hikes, which could further strain businesses. The Chamber recommends that government explore options for reducing wasteful expenditure and focus on efficiencies and productivity. Now, the U.S. administration's somewhat protectionist stance may also threaten South Africa's preferential trade status under AGOA. Now, despite these challenges, financial markets remained relatively calm in March. But independent economist Richard Downing expects the next reading to reflect lower optimism due to the impact of Trump's tariff structures and budget disagreements on confidence levels.
So from an arrow that's pointing in the wrong direction, which is down and it's the wrong color, red, to one that's pointing up and it's green. Tell me about retail sales and what they were doing in February.
Local retail sales to growth increased at 3.9%, but it was slower than expected and slower than the growth we saw in January. In January, retail sales increased by 7%. So there is a cause of concern on that front. However, the upbeat number was driven by a strong showing in textiles, clothing, footwear, and leather goods. An even more accurate figure is the month-on-month figure, where we are seeing that pressure coming through. On a monthly basis, sales declined 1.3%. Suggesting growing pressure on consumers and economic uncertainty. Now, economists caution that external shocks such as U.S. trade tariffs and potential VAT increases may impact inflation and interest rates moving forward. Despite these challenges, retailers remain optimistic, with F&B even forecasting an 8% boost in consumer spending over the Easter compared to last year. A Business Day article noted that F&B expects a significant shift towards online spending, which rose 47.1% year on year, while physical cards payments declined. F&B's virtual card, in the meantime, has seen unprecedented growth, with a 90.1% surge in usage just before Easter. So it seems like we'll be seeing, quite a lot of people spending this long weekend period, which could then boost the March print. Back to that retail sales print, seeing that the industry posted gains in January and February, economists expect the sector to positively boost Q1 GDP growth.
All right, lastly, Dowling, it's the end of the trading week ahead of the long weekend. What kind of a day can we expect in the markets today?
Local markets likely to start mixed following international cues. In terms of company news, traders will be waking up to production updates from Sasol and Merafe. Moving over to currency markets, the rand remaining steady under the 19 rand mark to the dollar. It's sitting at 18.86 to the greenback this hour. Looking at U.S. markets, futures are in the red. Sentiment has been dampened by Fed Chair Jerome Powell's comments around growth and inflation. Earnings season is also picking up on that front, so investors looking out for earnings reports. The big one for today is Netflix, out later in the day. Then over in Asia, upbeat Chinese GDP numbers and progressive talks between Japan and the US over trade are boosting markets. Those stocks likely to close the day in the green.
All right, thank you for that. That's Ntawuleng Lechela there. She's kept you updated on business, economics, and the markets over the last 3 hours here on The Morning Brief.
So you've heard OUTsurance clients talking about all the money they saved when they switched. You've thought about getting a quote, but you're not sure if they could save you money on your car insurance or if it's worth the effort. Well, make today the day you get an OUTsurance quote. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. If OUTsurance can't beat your car insurance premium, ask them for 500 Rand cash. And make that 1,500 Rand cash if you've been claim-free and with the same insurer for 3 years. Monthly savings on your car insurance or cash in your pocket. Either way, you're a winner, like Thulani.
Fast, helpful, efficient, everything was so smooth. I saved 530 bucks.
Make today the day you switch and save. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. With OUTsurance, you always get something out. A licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
Meet Maria. Meet her family, the Ramirez. One wrong step and they will have you swimming with the fishes. Meet Amadeo, a trained lawyer and member of the rival business clan, the Mateus. The two fall in love and Maria's dreams of a happily ever after change when Madeo is murdered at their wedding. Their daughter, Jo, despises her mother's humble beginnings and will do anything to steal all of Maria's fortune. This is the world of Sweet Diva. Airs weekdays at 4:30 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
Pressure keeps mounting and the thirst for maximum points has drastically increased. FC Union Berlin and VfB Stuttgart are in a tense battle for victory. This is the Bundesliga. Football as it's meant to be. Do not miss out on FC Union Berlin versus VfB Stuttgart on Saturday, 19 April at 6:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Big stories of the day. #The Morning Brief.
Let's turn to the story now. The Department of Health has responded to community complaints about medicine shortages at the Oliver Bosch Clinic in Tshwane. Deputy Health Minister Dr. Joe Phaahla and the Gauteng Health MEC Nomantunko Moralihoko visited the facility to investigate reports of long queues, staffing challenges and drug availability concerns. Their findings reveal that while medicine availability remains high, deeper systemic and communication issues persist. Let's speak now to Dr. Joe Phaahla, the Deputy Minister of Health. Good morning to you, Deputy Minister, and thank you for your time. So what did you find when you went to Oliver Bosch Clinic that spoke to the concerns about the community, about medicine unavailability, as well as the long queues? What's behind all of that?
Thank you very much. Thank you, Thulas, and to the listeners of SAFM.
Indeed, we were there on Tuesday morning with MEC Nomantu and Gobara Lehoko, following a complaint which I had received from a community member, which was saying that the member was at the clinic and they were not able to get the medicine which had been prescribed. The investigation, even prior to us going there, had indicated that in terms of availability of the commonly used medicines, in terms of the common ailments which are prevalent in the area and at the clinic, the availability was upwards of between 95 and 97%, which is quite acceptable. But what we found was that there would be from time to time some specific items which would not be available, and at times when that happens, the doctor and the pharmacist would then make available alternatives, because for various medicines there's also what you call generics and other alternatives. But we found that sometimes it's more of a communication, because if somebody is used on a chronic medication and they are used to a particular pill or tablet which looks a particular way, and then on that particular day they are told that that particular one is not available, but they are given something, if they are not properly explained to, that creates a problem. So that was one. Even when we were at the clinic, we spoke to some patients. One of them who had indicated that the doctor had said that the medicine which he wanted to prescribe was not available, but they would make something available. But it was clear that the patient had not been fully, explained to, and we had to get one of the members of the professional staff to spend some more time to explain. So that part, we found that it was really within acceptable norms. But what was quite clearly, an issue was the long queues, long waiting times, people arriving as early as 6 in the morning and only leaving around 3 o'clock, in the afternoon. And because the utilization of the facility is very high, at between 400 to 500 clients per day, which is higher than even some of the hospitals. So that's the pressure on the demand for services is very high, and that's what leads to people waiting for long periods, and that's what we said we really need to attend to urgently.
Is there a common theme then, Deputy Minister, that you picked up at Olive and Holt Bosch, but actually you can relate to that actually the pressure on the system is increasing, particularly the community health clinics?
Well, definitely, there are two things, Thulas. One is in terms of a rising population. Gauteng and even Olive and Bush, as the local councillor who was, there were a couple of councillors, including the ward councillor, who said to us, look, this place has just grown in leaps and bounds. More than doubled the population, being a fairly new township which only started after 1994. And that facility has been the only facility, while the population has really, been growing in leaps and bounds. So that's one aspect, as people move into Gauteng. But also, it's a question also of what we call the burden of disease, meaning that for various factors, whether we talk about infectious disease, like HIV and AIDS, TB especially, amongst young people also sexually transmitted infections, amongst older people as people live longer, your blood sugar, diabetes, and also they mentioned that quite a lot of people with disease like high blood pressure, and of course also we know that the country is also facing a growing burden of cancer. And adding to that, of course, the clinic itself on the issue of trauma, they do have an emergency room where they also deal with trauma. But because it's a day clinic, only works until 5 o'clock, they don't face too much on the trauma side. But those are the burden of disease, the chronic ones and the infectious disease, and also in terms of that clinic, a high demand for mother and child care. There were a lot of young women there coming, for antenatal care and also bringing their young children for care. So those are the high demands of services, which is quite common in our urban areas.
So how does the talk from the minister a few days ago of the building of 6 new academic hospitals, how does that fit in with responding to the pressure? What will these academic hospitals do to alleviate the pressure, particularly at the community health care centers, which is what you and I have been talking about? And what's the timelines in terms of these new academic hospitals?
Well, that's a bit of medium to long term. I mean, but what that will alleviate, one is in terms of, because at the higher level, all these clinics and district hospitals and regional hospitals, when they get complicated cases, they refer to these academic hospitals. Now, many of them, I mean, if you take Gauteng, for instance, a hospital like George Mukari in Garangua was never really, constructed as an academic. It was just a community hospital when the medical school was then started in the late 70s. Yeah, in late 70s. Then the hospital was then converted to be a teaching hospital. So it just doesn't have the facilities, because the teaching hospital also looks after more complicated illnesses. So you find that the pressure which I'm describing at Oliver Clinic, if you were to go to George Mukari Hospital, you would also find, now at the higher level, you will find the same kind of pressure because of the fact that the facility was never meant to, in terms of its construction, its layout. It was never meant to be treating referrals from just in Gauteng itself, but also from other provinces, but also including in our neighboring countries. So that's going to help, but also in terms of more training, not just in numbers, but also more specialties who will then be able to support your primary healthcare facilities, because there is no use if people are screened, they are found to be having some complicated illnesses like cancer, but then when they must go to a more advanced hospital, it's so busy and so full that it doesn't have the facilities. It will really just improve the whole system, the continuum of health from the primary right up to the specialized care. That's where your teaching hospitals are going to come very handy.
Just lastly, Dr. Patla, how are you as government and the health system grappling with the pressures that objectively have to do with the increase in the population that has to do with migration, controlled and uncontrolled? As you and I speak, and thanks to the reporting of our colleagues at the Citizen newspaper, there's this case that's raising those points quite sharply that has to do with this child, this teenager from Zimbabwe who needs treatment for this autoimmune disease. But now this case is heading to the High Court because doctors at Charlotte Maxeke were grappling with the question of whether or not the child qualifies for a transplant from a South African donor in the absence of proper papers on the part of the mother. How are you grappling with those issues that objectively are weighing on the system?
Well, it's a big issue. I mean, it's a very big issue. If you look at Gauteng, if you look at Limpopo, if you look at Mpumalanga on the eastern side, people coming in from Eswatini, from Mozambique, Limpopo, of course, from Zimbabwe, from Malawi. Gauteng is everybody, from our neighboring. I mean, I was just, saying to colleagues, I think sometime last year or year before last, when I was at one of our hospitals here in Pretoria, Kalafong. And they were just as we're looking at the care they are providing, and they were indicating to me that, I mean, in the maternity section, if they are easily at that given time, they find that between 50 and 60% of the women they are caring for are non-South African. Some of them can't even communicate in any of the local languages, so which becomes even more difficult. So that is a major issue which put pressure also on our resources, But especially when there are very few instances like the one which you are mentioning, where it is a planned thing, where you can even indicate, because we do have policies. For instance, the case you are referring to on transplant, but because the organ donation is very scarce, we do have a policy which says that first on the queue must be citizens, and then only when citizens have been taken care of, then you can consider non-citizens. So those are the issues. But in emergency situations like maternity, you can't, if a woman comes in and they are in labor, it doesn't matter whether they've got a document, don't have a document, you have to admit. So it's a huge pressure because it's not part of what has been budgeted for. When we allocated funds from the National Treasury, it's based on the population of registered South Africans. So those are the pressures, and we're trying to navigate through to see whether maybe there's been debates as to whether our neighbors could be able to contribute.
Yeah.
But the formula and the politics of that is still eluding us. We haven't been able to narrow that down to something tangible solution.
And it's complicated by your international law responsibilities, isn't it?
Well, definitely, because we also, we're part and parcel of the SADC region, Africa region, and we're talking about integration of the population. But of course, this kind of services, because every country plans for its citizens, it does become difficult. And as I'm saying, we have been discussing that. There's been issues as to whether we can explore at the formal forums of SADC, especially of AU, whether we could be able to propose some formulas as to how countries which have the advantage of having, particular health services which help neighbors, what kind of formula can be proposed in terms of assistance and reimbursement. But we haven't been able to narrow it down to something tangible which could then be presented at such forums.
All right, let's leave it there. Thank you for your time this morning. That is Dr. Joe Phaahla, Deputy Health Minister.
Rise and shine every weekday morning on Expresso.
Now, whether it's a motivational Monday or even a Health Tuesday, this is the best way to start your day.
Let our trending tech keep you ahead of the curve.
Join us online and vote in our fashion poll.
Elevate your cooking skills every Wednesday.
It's the best and morning entertainment.
So wake up with us.
6 to 9 a.m. on S3.
Cheers.
The Blue Diamonds want to shine all the way from kickoff to the final whistle, while the Rockets plan to rock up with a strong winning mentality. This is the Hollywood Bet Super League. Experience the exciting battle between JVWFC and TS Galaxy Queens on Sunday 20 April at 2:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
Yeah, as I said, a buffet of conversation that has been playing itself out, that has been served this morning. Let me take some of your voice notes and calls. Let me start with this one. It's a reflection on the president's oversight in the Eastern Cape. Let me hear what this person has to say.
Good morning, Thulas. It's Furana from Durban. You know, Thulas, the president's visit to the PE or Eastern Cape is a waste of time and it's just PR. Ramaphosa has failed. Let us be honest. Yes, there are 9 wasted years of Zuma, but what about these years? This administration is failing by all means, and we are quiet about that.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for raising that. I wonder what goes through the leaders of the administration when they hear that indictment, that analysis and assessment that says the president has failed. And I wonder what they make of it all and the level to which they can account for the past few years that the president has been in office and their own grappling with the serious service delivery failures that we see in some provinces, in some municipalities, including municipalities, of course. Don't get me started about the city of Joburg. Let me leave it there. I've said enough about that.
Good morning, Thulas. This is Victor.
with respect to the President's visit to the Eastern Cape and his speech, I just think of the slogan that the ANC has used over the years, a better life for all. And one begins to think, are there a few words missing? Perhaps it should be a better life for all whose hands are in the cookie jar. Thank you.
Yeah, that's powerful. The slogan itself was, hailed for its simplicity, yet effectiveness, a better life for all. You can't ask for a better slogan. But when you add those words, a better life for all whose hands are in the cookie jar, that talks to other issues, of course, right? Issues of corruption that we've continued to grapple with as a nation, and the extent to which we've been able or not been able to overcome those. Let me take a call from, is it Savage? Good morning to you, Savage. You're calling from Atteridgeville. You want to talk to me about road safety over the Easter period. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes. First, I would like to thank the government and all involved parties for taking an effort. It's appreciated. However, my concern is that if they stop making this an event, and make it an annual thing, obviously the people, let's say hypothetically, people that are driving roadworthy cars and drunken driving and all those ill things won't start today. They've been doing it throughout the year. So if you care, for example, unroadworthy cars, you don't have to do it now in the middle of of Easter when somebody has already. You do a roadblock 200 kilometers down the road. So that guy possibly has missed another 100 or odd cars that he could have potentially killed them. So you're already late. Thanks to you cutting before he proceeded, and that is because they turned the thing into an event. So they must make sure that throughout the year they kept out all this nonsense. And I was checking Rob Ben's poster. He had 5 points to look after, like don't drink and drive, speeding, safety belt, and all those things. They lack critical things that we pay for. They must say, beware of potholes, beware of bad road infrastructure, beware of no lighting on the road, beware of corrupt officials that sell licenses to people who cannot drive, beware of illegal foreigners that are driving without proper documentations, which is an indictment on their side. It's fine when they insult us, telling us not to do this, but they must also say, hey, gents, you must beware. We're not taking care of the infrastructure also.
The point you raise is so important. I can only imagine the number of crashes that have occurred. Thank you for that, by the way, Savage. I can only imagine the number of crashes that have occurred because the traffic lights in cities like Joburg don't work and people have that confusion. Am I going or is the next person going? And we've not even begun to quantify the number of people swerving to try and avoid a massive crater, really, because that's what they are now, no longer potholes. Massive crater, and you end up on the wrong side of the road, etc., etc. That's the added layer of road safety. But anyway, we're out of time. Thank you for listening. It's been great being in your company this morning. Don't go anywhere because there's more quality news, current affairs, and talk programming that is coming up here on SAFM, starting up with The Talking Point with Kethi Mohlahlana after the news.